Chapter 1246. Drip. Nearly a dozen sharp blades pierced through Kadget's thin body. While keeping Kadget in place, the crimson blood on the tip of the blades dripped to the ground, gradually forming a pool of blood. Kadget first slowly lowered his head, looking at the sharp blades that pierced through his body one after another, the blades covered in his own blood. He then raised his head with difficulty, looking at his surroundings. It wasn't until this time that Kadget was able to clearly see what kind of monster had pierced his body with a blade. They were monsters that were about the same size as humans, and looked like black spiders in ninja attire. Since they were monsters that looked like black spiders, then these monsters naturally had 8 legs. As for those 8 legs, they were all sharp blades. In other words, the sharp blades that pierced through Kadget's body were the legs of these black spider-like monsters. Looking at these monsters, Kadget slowly opened his mouth. While blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth, he spat out words with difficulty. Why? Kadget's question, if heard by others, might not be able to understand anything. However, everyone present clearly understood what Kadget's question was. That was, where did these monsters come from, and when did they appear? Undoubtedly, until a second ago, there were no other creatures around except for Noah, Clementine, and Kadget, right? However, this question was a bit boring. Magic that can make you invisible shouldn't be rare, right? Noah said faintly. Although these monsters don't rely on magic, but a special skill to make them invisible, they have indeed been around since the beginning, and have been guarding this place. If I hadn't appeared, the moment you stepped into the tomb, they would have directly strangled you. This was also the reason why Noah personally appeared here. Previously, Noah had ordered demiurgos to collect information on the Celian cult. But because the cost of maintaining the great necropolis in Nasaric had been solved, Noah asked demiurgos to focus on the development of the great necropolis in Nasaric. Otherwise, he would have gotten the information on the Celian cult long ago. After all, Noah only needed information on the location of the capital of the Celian cult. The location of the capital of a neighboring country, he only needed to go to Ylantir and spend some effort to ask, and he would be able to get it easily. The reason why he didn't do that was because the tomb in Nasaric was more important. After knowing that there were intruders, Noah decided to come to the surface personally to see if he could collect any useful information, and not let the monsters guarding the tomb directly strangle the source of information. He didn't expect that this time, he would meet one of the special intelligence units of the Celian cult, and it was a member of the Dark Scripture. It was the most suitable. When you decided to invade this place, was it? Noah looked at Kadget, stared and closed his eyes. Thus, you can hold on to your regret and die here. Kadget's eyes widened a little, and then his pupils began to dilate. His head drooped down, and he completely stopped moving. The monsters that pierced through Kadget's body pulled out their blades one after another, bringing along a burst of red blood. They let Kadget fall to the ground, and the ground was gradually dyed red. Deal with the corpse. Noah glanced at Kadget's corpse, and then shifted his gaze to Clementine. Also, bring this woman back. The surrounding monsters immediately bowed their heads respectfully, received the order, and went forward to detain Clementine. Realizing that she had really provoked a powerful opponent, and also understood the cruel fate that she would have to bear next, Clementine hysterically resisted and struggled, but she was completely unable to free herself from the hands of any of the monsters around her. No matter what, Clementine was at most a character who had reached level 35 at most. On the other hand, the monsters on the surface of Nazaric's graveyard were at least level 50. Under these circumstances, it was impossible for Clementine to escape from the hands of the monsters that were detaining her. Thus, under Clementine's sharp screams, this person with a personality defect was escorted by the surrounding monsters into the large ancestral hall in the center of the tomb, and into the large tomb of Nasaric. What awaited this person with a personality defect would be countless times more cruel than the torture that they inflicted on others in their life. This was the only thing that could be ascertained. After Clementine was escorted into the large tomb of Nasarick by the monsters, Noah walked forward and came in front of the pearl of death that Kadjit had thrown on the ground. He bent down and picked it up. At this moment, the pearl of death in Noah's hand flashed with a faint light. Then, Noah heard it. A voice suddenly rang out in his head. "Greetings, great lord of the tomb, I offer you the highest respect." The sudden voice startled Noah. Then, he realized something and looked at the pearl of death in his hand. Looking at the pearl of death that was emitting a faint light in his hand, Noah narrowed his eyes and said softly, "Was it you who spoke just now?" Under Noah's gaze, the voice from just now sounded in Noah's mind again. "Yes, great lord of the tomb, please allow me to introduce myself. I am the pearl of death, an extremely rare item of wisdom in this world, please advise me." Intelligent item. Noah held the pearl tightly in his hand. "In other words, although you are a magical item, you have intelligence." "That's right." The voice in Noah's mind sounded a little proud. "Although I can't say that I am unique, but until now, I have never seen a second item with intelligence like me." Hearing this, Noah was more or less surprised. There were too many magic items in the underground tomb of Nasarick to count. Among them, there were many treasures that were absolutely precious to this world. Some were even treasures that only existed in myths and legends. But even with so many treasures, there was not one that could be like the pearl of death, which had its own intelligence. However, in the next second, Noah regained his calm. After all, this was a world where magic prevailed. Using magic, it was not difficult to seal a soul in an item and let the item have intelligence. "Then, what is your purpose in talking to me?" Noah asked with interest. "Don't tell me you want to recognize me as your master or something." "Yes, great lord of the tomb." The voice in Noah's mind began to carry a tone of respect and flattery. An intelligent tool like this one should naturally be used by the most outstanding person. Your strength has convinced this one, so please accept this one's loyalty and allow this one to work for you, great lord of the graveyard. Hearing this, Noah's heart was filled with disdain. Used by the most outstanding person? Was someone like Kadjit the most outstanding person? Definitely not. However, didn't this pearl of death still work for Kadjit? In other words, this so-called intelligent tool was simply a tool that spoke human language to people and ghosts. Originally, Noah was slightly interested in it. But now, Noah's interest in it had fallen to the lowest point. Just as Noah was about to say something, in Noah's mind, an emotionless but pleasing young voice suddenly appeared. "No need." As the voice sounded, the small silver sword on Noah's back emitted a blinding light. "Master, you have me, the holy sword that can kill the demon king, you don't need me to pick up something from the side of the road." As soon as he finished speaking, the dazzling light emitted from the small silver sword shot towards the pearl of death, causing the pitch-black light on the pearl of death to tremble and let out a miserable shriek. In the next second, the round pearl in Noah's hand lost its light and the voice from before disappeared without a trace. Noah almost laughed. This Aster, why was he jealous of a pearl? Chapter 1247. Everyone knew that in this world, humans were an extremely weak race. Although humans had built many great cities on flat land, and even established several countries, the fact that they lived on flat land only highlighted the frailty of human beings. After all, flat land was a very dangerous terrain. First of all, if they were attacked, there would be nowhere to hide. Moreover, even if they wanted to escape, they would be easily discovered by the enemy. For the other races, choosing to build a city on flat land without any terrain advantage was simply the height of stupidity. However, humans were a race that did not have night vision, nor were they born with a strong body like magical creatures. They could only choose flat terrain as their habitat. It could be said that if they did not choose flat land, which had nowhere to hide, as their place of residence, they would not be able to create their own life. In this world, there were many races that were more developed and had a more advanced civilization than the human race. However, none of those races could rule this world. Hundreds of years ago, the developed races of this world fought against the Eight Desires King, who wanted to rule the world, and were severely weakened by the Eight Desires King's terrifying power. Compared to the other races, humans did not have any special powers, and were ignored by the powerful races. They did not participate in the Eight Desires King's war, but instead, they survived the war. Until now, the reason why humans could continue to exist in this world and not be eliminated was because of the war from hundreds of years ago, which weakened the powerful races to a critical state. Even so, for hundreds of years, humans still could not turn the tables in this world. It was easy to imagine how weak the power of humans was in this world. However, in such a world, there were also powerful human countries. The Yestage Kingdom, the Bahaz Empire, the Celian Theocracy. These three countries were undoubtedly very rare human countries. Although there were also human countries in other places, those countries were either scattered all over the world and were threatened by various powerful races, or they were simply reduced to ranches of carnivorous demon countries and were raised like livestock. Their situation was extremely miserable. As such, the kingdoms, empires, and theocracies were undoubtedly in a much better situation than the other human countries. Among these three human countries, the most powerful one was undoubtedly the theocracy. This could be seen from the capital of the theocracy alone. There were many breathtaking sceneries here. One of them was that almost all the roads were paved with bricks and stones. This was a scene that could not be seen in the neighboring countries. Think about the royal capital of a kingdom. The ground there was mostly bumpy, and the kingdom was not strong enough to pave the roads of the entire city with bricks and tiles. Of course, the reason for this situation was also because of the kingdom's internal and external troubles, as well as the gradual decay of the regime. Apart from the theocracy, the imperial capital of the empire also had extremely advanced stone paths, but the theocracy was still superior. If one were to look down from the sky above the capital of the theocracy, they would be able to clearly see that there was a central avenue that was directly connected to the highway. Just like a normal road, the center was for carriages and horses to pass through while the two sides were sidewalks. The difference was that there were many small guardrails between the road and the sidewalk to ensure the safety of pedestrians. Street lamps stood on both sides of the road. At night, the street lamps lit up with magical light, illuminating the entire capital. Apart from this, there were also many people dressed as soldiers patrolling the capital, giving off a sense of vitality. This was a scene that could not be seen in a kingdom. At the very least, Noah, who had been to the royal capital once and clearly knew about the decay and corruption there, was very sure of this. Floating in the air and looking down at the bustling city full of vitality, Noah could not help but sigh. As expected of a country with players as its backing. The degree of prosperity is not something that kingdoms or empires can compare to. Although that was what he said, Noah's eyes flashed with cold emotions as he looked down at the capital of the silent theocracy. After capturing Clementine alive and torturing her, Noah was able to obtain information that led him to this place. Today, it was time for Noah to settle the score with the people of the silent theocracy. Apart from Noah, the strongest fighting force in Nazarek's underground tomb had all arrived. Among all the guardians, Zaisha was the strongest in duels. Among all the guardians, Cocytus was the strongest in attack. Among all the guardians, Yon was the strongest in group battles. Among all the guardians, Malay was the strongest in magic. Among all the guardians, Demiurgos was the strongest in wisdom. Among all the guardians, Yerbade was the strongest in defense. A group of the strongest fighting force in Nazarek's underground tomb floated around Noah, surrounding Noah in the middle and standing against the wind. Era. Zaisha spoke in a somewhat pitiful voice. If you look at it from this perspective, humans are really like ants. There's something wrong with what you just said, Shadia. Heartbade smiled gently. No matter how you look at it, humans are just ants. However, even ants like these can still receive Lord Noah's mercy. Yawn laughed. However, they don't understand this at all. Although it's a bit pitiful, Malay held his staff tightly and said timidly. But as expected, those who can't understand Lord Noah's kindness are all wrong. A human country. Cositas spat out white gas. It's a pity to destroy it after developing to this extent. The most pitiful thing is that mere humans dare to offend our sovereign. Demiurgos pushed up his glasses. No matter how prosperous the city is, it will turn into the dust of history at this moment. The other guardians nodded one after another. Their eyes were filled with coldness and killing intent as they looked down. Especially Zaisha. A bloody light flashed in her scarlet eyes. It was more terrifying than anything else. You dare to control me and make me betray Lord Noah and suffer such humiliation. Zaisha's cute face was twisted with rage. I'll never let you off. Noah's eyes flashed as he sensed the killing intent and evil aura surging from Zaisha's body. He said indifferently, all of you can leave first. After saying that, Noah did not give the guardians a chance to reply. He walked past them as though he was walking in the air and headed towards the capital of the Celian cult nation. As Noah walked step by step in the air towards the capital of the Celian cult nation as though he was walking on invisible ground, an almost inaudible commotion began to spread in the sky above the capital. If it were an ordinary person, they would definitely not be able to discover it, right? In the sky above the capital of the Celian cult nation, there were figures that could not be seen at all. They were the Celian cult nation soldiers who used both flight and invisibility spells. In this world, since there was a spell like flight, they naturally had to guard against attacks from the sky. These soldiers who used both flight and invisibility spells were precisely the troops that were specially prepared to guard against air attacks. Now, Noah's appearance naturally aroused the vigilance of these soldiers. Noah, who had a superb sensing ability, could clearly sense it. In the sky above the capital of the Celian cult nation, invisible auras were surrounding him. Feeling the aura surrounding him, Noah smiled slightly, but there was no smile in his eyes. As though he did not notice the invisible soldiers, Noah slowly walked in the air while closing his eyes. At this moment, in Noah's heart, a stone plate with 10 patterns on its outlines suddenly trembled. On it, a pattern flashed. It had been more than a month since he came to this world. In such a situation where he had not experienced it for a long time, the familiar power turned into a scorching torrent and roared in Noah's body. Bang! An astonishing divine power surged from Noah's body. Chapter 1248. At this moment, the energy source in Noah's body had been transformed into divine power, causing the surging divine power to surge out from his body like a raging wave, turning into a substantial golden airwave that spread out in all directions. The substantial golden airwave was like a shockwave that could be seen with the naked eye. It spread out in an extremely violent manner towards the surroundings. Suddenly, not far away, the guardians of the underground tomb in Nassarik were all caught off guard by the sudden violent shockwave, and all of them turned pale with fright. Almost subconsciously, the guardians raised their hands and blocked in front of them, as though they were walking in a storm, maintaining their figures with great difficulty. As for the soldiers of the Celian cult who were surrounding Noah, they could not even put up the slightest bit of resistance. They could not even react in time, and all of them were shocked by the sudden violent shockwave. Boom! Accompanied by a muffled explosion, the soldiers of the Celian cult who had used the invisibility spell to hide their figures were shaken to the point of revealing their figures. Amidst a series of screams, they were sent flying in all directions. Hence, the golden airwave that was like a shockwave wreaked havoc in the sky above the Celian cult like a storm, instantly attracting the attention of the people of the Celian cult. As the center of the golden airwave storm, Noah, whose robes were fluttering in the wind, naturally became extremely conspicuous. That. Who is that? What is that? A golden storm. What's going on? Did something happen? The entire capital of the Lien cult was suddenly thrown into chaos. Under such circumstances, in the center of the capital below, from a huge building that looked like a palace, a dense crowd of soldiers began to surge out. Among them, there were even many magic chanters who were dressed as priests and had activated the flight spell, flying directly towards the sky. Standing in the center of the golden storm, Noah looked down at the dense crowd of Lien cult soldiers and magic chanters who were flying towards him like a swarm of locusts. His eyes were as calm as an ancient well. In his heart, the pattern that lit up bloomed with a dazzling light. I will use these words to provoke the gods above, to use this magic, to chant this incantation, to make everything in the world bow and kneel. The voice of the incarnation named priest reverberated in everyone's heart, and the light fluctuation spread throughout the world. Then, Noah spoke. Get down. 2 simple words, yet it caused the violent surging golden airwaves to transform into a tide, rippling outwards and instantly enveloping the entire capital of the Lien theocracy. Then, the densely packed Lien cult soldiers and magic chanters that were swarming towards Noah like a swarm of locusts froze in midair. Immediately afterwards, as if they were suppressed by an invisible force, the soldiers and magic chanters fell to the ground at a speed faster than when they came, and wailed in pain as they hit the ground. At this moment, the entire Lien cult was in a panic. No matter how stupid they were, they all realized it. The man who was floating in mid-air and turned into the center of the golden storm was definitely not someone who could be taken down easily. At this moment, in the capital of the Lien cult, every one of those who had the ability to be called a powerhouse had an ominous premonition. Their instincts told them. Today, the Lien cult was going to suffer a terrible disaster. Such instincts turned into reality in the next second. I am the conqueror who can defeat 1,000 with 100, 10,000 with 1,000, and 10,000 with 10,000. Now, for me who is on the side of justice, please shine brightly and bestow me with divine power. The brand new voice turned into a sound wave, rippling across the entire Lien cult. Following the rumbling sound, the originally clear sky above the Lien cult nation was suddenly filled with dark clouds. Like a whirlpool, the clouds surged and swirled in the sky above the entire city. Rumble. In the next second, streaks of lightning and thunder suddenly exploded from the pitch-black clouds in the sky, bringing along an extremely oppressive and terrifying pressure, causing the entire Lien cult nation to fall into a state of panic. Many of the powerhouses and higher-ups of the Lien cult looked at the raging winds, dark clouds, lightning flashing, and thunder rumbling in the sky in horror. Their bodies started to tremble. Under such a sky, Noah was like a god, looking down at the capital of the Lien cult with the dark clouds in the background as he spun crazily like a whirlpool. In that pair of dark and deep eyes, there was no pity at all. In order to kill Gudjifu, the Lien cult was willing to use an entire innocent village as a sacrifice and wantonly slaughter. In order to achieve their goal, this cult that worshipped the supremacy of humans and advocated for the elimination of other races did not hesitate to disregard good and evil, treating all races other than humans as targets for slaughter. In this cult, demi-humans like the forest elves, half-elves, and dark elves were all sold as slaves. Such racial discrimination was just repeating what the other races did to humans. In Noah's eyes, it was not worthy of worship at all. In addition to the matter of Zaisha, the difference in ideology, as well as the new enmity and old hatred, this outcome had long been predestined. Repent in the midst of destruction, leaving behind this sentence that disappeared with the wind. Noah raised one hand. Rumble. In the sky, in the dark clouds that spun crazily like a whirlpool, all the lightning flashed and thunder rumbled at this moment, turning into violent thunderbolts. Amidst the wailing of the atmosphere, the thunderbolts covered the entire sky and shrouded the capital of the Lien cult below. This was the sound of the thunderbolts descending from the sky, instantly destroying buildings. This was the sound of countless broken bricks and rubble being sent flying by the impact of the thunderbolts descending from the sky. Dong! This was the sound of houses and buildings collapsing. Kacha kacha kacha. This was the sound of the ground cracking inch by inch under the devastation of the violent thunderbolts. In an instant, the entire capital of the Lien cult was shrouded in the violent thunderbolts descending from the sky. Under the bombardment of the thunderbolts, it gradually turned into dust. Oh my God! God! The end of the world! The end of the world is here. God! Please save us! Save us! Under the devastation of the violent thunderbolts, the people who were fleeing in fear one by one sent out the most important prayer of their lives to the 6 gods that they believed in. What they received was the thunderbolts descending from the sky once again, destroying the buildings in the capital one by one. Rumble. The city walls around the capital finally collapsed under the bombardment of the violent lightning. In the capital of the Lien cult, the people could only flee for their lives, letting their screams and wails resound through the entire space. That scene was like hell. Not far away, the guardians of Nazarik's underground graveyard looked at Noah, who stood in the wind like a god above the capital. With a raise of his hand, he could change the color of the sky and earth, causing violent lightning to descend, and causing a bustling city to gradually turn into ruins. Intense shock surged in their hearts. Looking at the people in the city below who could only flee for their lives in hellish despair, even the guardians of the great underground tomb in Nasarik couldn't help but turn pale. Under such a power of heaven and earth, every guardian recognized their own helplessness. Even these people who were at the maximum level of 100 could only feel powerless, let alone the people in the city below who could only tremble and wail under such power. However, if someone were to observe carefully, they would notice. Even though the entire city was shrouded in the dark clouds of lightning and thunder and was being ravaged by the violent thunderbolts descending from the sky, none of the ordinary people were harmed. After all, to the ordinary people, the actions and decisions of the upper echelons of the Lien cult had nothing to do with them. Noah's goal was not to massacre without regard for anything, but to punish the culprits. After taking one last look at the city that had fallen into hell and was gradually turning into ruins, Noah turned around. Let's go back. The guardians woke up one by one and quickly responded respectfully. Yes. Chapter 1249. Nasarik Underground Tomb, Surface Graveyard. Wang. Thick darkness suddenly emerged from the space in the center of the tomb. It condensed together, turning into a door-like fog and stabilizing. It was the 10th grade spell, Teleportation Door, that had no distance restrictions and a 0 failure rate of teleportation. With Noah in the lead, a group of guardians of the Nasarik underground tomb slowly walked out of the black fog-like door and appeared on the surface graveyard of the Nasarik underground tomb. Apart from Noah, everyone else was in a daze. Clearly, they hadn't been able to react to the destructive power of heaven and earth just now. However, when they came to their senses, the guardians of the underground tomb in Nasarik looked at Noah with only admiration and pride left in their eyes. A person with such divine power was actually the supreme ruler of the Nasarik underground tomb. Who would not feel admiration and pride for the person whom the guardians were loyal to? Especially Yael Bede and Zatia, who looked at Noah with extremely strong love in their eyes. They were just short of confessing on the spot and asking for Noah's favor. On the contrary, the person who had just used the power of authority to turn the entire Lien theocracy into ruins muttered thoughtfully as he walked forward as if nothing had happened. Those players haven't appeared yet. Ibra had said that the 6 gods of the Lien theocracy were all players. However, those players had only arrived in this world a few hundred years ago. Even so, it wasn't impossible that the 6 great gods were still alive. In Yggdrasil, the races that players could choose from were roughly divided into 3 types: humans, subhumans, and mutants. The basic races of humans were humans, dwarves, forest elves, and so on. The basic races of subhumans were goblins, orcs, ogres, and so on. The basic races of mutants were skeletons, zombies, vampires, and so on. Including the high-grade races, there were more than 700 races in Yggdrasil. Since the 6 gods who had arrived a few hundred years ago had helped the humans establish a country where humans were supreme, then it was very likely that they were humans. Since they were humans, they should have all died after hundreds of years. However, if the 6 great gods were from some of the higher races of the human race or had a profession with a special lifespan setting, it was not impossible for them to still be alive. Besides, even if they didn't, since there were precious items in Nazarik's graveyard that could change one's race and class, there was a high possibility that the 6 gods also had the same item. That way, as long as they changed to long-lived races and ranks, the 6 great gods would be able to continue living. Because of this, Noah was prepared to fight the 6 great gods, but the 6 great gods did not appear. Does it really not exist anymore? Or did he hide when he saw that the situation was not good? Noah muttered thoughtfully. If I had known earlier, I would have delayed and not used my authority right away. That being said, even if the 6 great gods appeared, what could they do? In the hands of Noah, who could already use authority, even if there were tens of thousands of level 100 players, it would only take one move to destroy them. What Noah really cared about was the fact that these players had come to this world. 8 Desires King. 6 Great Gods. Demon God. If these existences really came to this world when the 2 worlds connected, then why didn't Gaia and Aleia discover it? Or did Gaia and Aleia discover it but did not say anything? No. Gaia and Aleia did not hide it from Noah. Then, did something unexpected happen? Noah sighed, then raised his head and looked at the sky. Alright, I'll leave for a while. Noah's purpose in coming to this world was to prevent the existence of Nazarik's graveyard from affecting the current world. However, since this world had welcomed many players hundreds of years ago, and even allowed the magic, professions, and items in Yggdrasil to flourish in this world, then Noah's worries were unnecessary. After all, magic, professions, items, and other factors were prevalent in this world, causing the entire society to change qualitatively. If this world didn't have any negative effects, then no matter how much trouble Nazarik's underground tomb caused in this world, it shouldn't have any effect. In that case, Noah did not need to worry about whether the existence of Nazarik's graveyard would affect the world. Thus, Noah said to the guardians of Nazarik's graveyard without looking back. Next, I'll leave this place for a while. I'll leave the rest of Nazarik's graveyard to you guys. Hearing this, the guardians of Nazarik's graveyard were startled at first, then they nodded one by one. Understood, Heartwarming said in a formal tone. We'll arrange for escorts. Obviously, the guardians thought that Noah intended to go to the capital of the kingdom or somewhere else like before. Little did they know that Noah intended to leave this world. Thus, Noah shook his head and said, "There's no need to arrange for escorts. There's no need to arrange guards. I'll be fine by myself." At this moment, the guardians of Nazarik's graveyard objected. How can this be? How can Lord Noah not have any attendants by his side? Yes. That's right, it's not right to let the Supreme Venerable travel alone. Although we know that our power is too insignificant for Lord Noah, this power still has to be given to the Supreme Venerable that we are loyal to. Zaisha, Heartwarming, Mare, Cossitz, and Demiurgos all expressed their thoughts. I think so too, Heartwarming also said. No matter what, it's not right to let the Supreme Venerable travel alone. Even with Lord Noah's power, there's no one in this world who can compare to you. However, if you have to personally deal with those weak ants, it's too shameful. please allow us to accompany you. The guardians of Nazarik's graveyard all nodded vigorously. It was obvious that due to their excessive loyalty, the guardians couldn't bear to see Noah leave Nazarik alone and go to the great graveyard. In response, Noah could only smile bitterly. I know that you have good intentions, but the place I want to go is rather special. It's not possible to bring you with me, so please forgive me. Saying this, Noah smiled faintly as he gently stroked the small silver sword on his waist. Moreover, I'm not traveling alone. Aster is with me, isn't that right? After hearing Noah's words, the guardians finally remembered Aster's existence. It wasn't that Aster's presence was weak, but rather that Aster had never interacted with the people of Nazarik's graveyard before. Naturally, it was easy to overlook him. However, even if they remembered that Aster was with Noah, the guardians of Nazarik's graveyard were still a little worried. Alright, you don't have to worry. Noah could only shrug. Just like you said, with my abilities, it's not that easy for something to happen to me. Moreover, Nazarik's graveyard is in a period of rapid development. It can't do without your presence. The guardians of Nazarik's graveyard could only helplessly nod. Then, Heartwarming said with great reluctance. When do you plan to leave? When I leave. Noah stroked his chin and smiled. Today, I'll take a look at the various operations of Nazarik. Hearing Noah's words, the guardians of Nazarik's graveyard looked at each other. After a while, it was unknown if they had reached some sort of consensus, but Heartwarming and Dreamy nodded at the same time, causing the expressions of Zaisha, Yal, Mare, and Cossets to ease up slightly. Chapter 1250. The next day, Noah didn't seem to have any intention of leaving and woke up naturally. Aster also acted as if nothing had happened and walked out of the bedroom hand in hand with Noah. Are you leaving now? Aster asked softly with his usual emotionless tone. Aren't you going to say goodbye to others? Anyway, if I have the chance to come back next time, it's only been a month. Noah patted Aster's head. Or, Aster, are you reluctant to leave this place? No. Aster shook his head without hesitation. As long as I have a master, that's enough. You. Noah laughed bitterly. At this time, there was a knock on the door and a voice came in. Sorry to disturb, Lord Noah. Heartwarming. Noah raised his eyes and looked in the direction of the door. Come in. As soon as he finished speaking, the door was gently opened. Outside the door, Heartwarming and Dreamy appeared at the same time and walked in. Seeing Heartwarming and Dreamy, Aster, who was holding Noah's hand, raised his head slightly and glanced at Noah. After Noah nodded, he immediately closed his eyes and his body flickered with a brilliant light, turning into a burst of light particles and gathering in Noah's hand. After a while, the familiar silver dagger appeared in Noah's hand and was pinned back to his waist by Noah. At this time, Noah looked at Heartwarming and Dreamy. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Dreamy chose to remain silent. Only Heartwarming took a step forward and met Noah's gaze. Is Lord Noah preparing to leave? That's right. Noah blinked. What? You're still worried? No, since Lord Noah has already decided, we won't say anything else. Heartwarming shook his head and said this. However, Supreme Venerable, please at least accept this. Following Heartwarming's words, Dreamy walked past Heartwarming, took out a backpack, and respectfully presented it to Noah. This is. Noah took the bag and frowned slightly. Unlimited backpack. Unlimited backpack. As the name suggested, it was a backpack with unlimited capacity. There was no space limit, but there was a weight limit. Using this backpack, as long as it did not exceed the weight limit of the backpack, no matter how big the object was, it could be stored inside. In other words, at first glance, this backpack was the size of a human head, but even if it couldn't compare to Noah's treasure vault or the treasure hall in Nazarik's underground tomb, it definitely wasn't as much as it looked. At the very least, it was enough to be used as a space the size of a warehouse. In Yggdrasil, this kind of backpack was often used to store consumables and recovery items such as scrolls and potions. Lord Noah, this unlimited backpack has been filled with props made by various crafting professions in Nazarik's underground tomb. Seeing Noah's puzzled expression, Demiurgos explained. Among them, there are short staffs, magic staffs, crystals, potions, and other consumable props. The head of scribe has also instructed the Supreme Venerable to use dragon skin to create the highest level magic scrolls and other magic props. I hope they can be of help to Lord Noah. Hearing this, Noah's frown deepened, and he looked straight at Demiurgos. I've brought most of the things I want. These are all prepared for the underground tomb in Nazarik. In the treasure hall of the underground tomb in Nazarik, Noah had done a large search and collected all kinds of treasures that were useful to him. In the library on the 10th floor underground, Noah had also searched through all kinds of extremely precious summoning books, item books, magic books, and information books. In terms of gains, Noah had already obtained a lot. Noah definitely had a lot of the props that Demiurgos had prepared in his treasure hole. Since that was the case, there was no reason not to leave these props for the underground tomb in Nazarik. After all, the underground tomb in Nazarik also required the use of all kinds of magic props. Lord Noah, please don't worry. Yair Bedard smiled slightly. Because of the large amount of resources provided by Lord Noah, the various magic props made in Nazarik have exceeded our initial expectations. This has allowed the treasure hall to be fully replenished. These are all part of what we think will be leftovers after careful calculations. Therefore, Lord Noah doesn't have to worry about the lack of props in the underground tomb in Nazarik, Demiurgos also said warmly. If these things can help Lord Noah, then it's really the best thing for us. Noah was suddenly speechless. After a while, Noah tightened the infinity backpack in his hand and smiled helplessly at Yair Bedard and Demiurgos. If that's the case, I'll accept your kindness. Only then did Jabez and Demiurgos smile. What? When Noah returned to the world between and explained the matter of the players to Gaia and Aleia, the two restraints let out surprised sounds. That's impossible. Gaia said in surprise. At that time, when we intercepted the data of that game, undoubtedly, there was only one player. There were no other players. But, it's impossible for Noah to lie about such things, Aleia was the first to calm down and said calmly. It seems that the situation of the two worlds that were connected is much deeper than we thought. What situation? Noah asked in confusion. Do you have any clues about this situation? Well, I don't know if this counts as a clue, Gaia said. Little Noah, you also know about the existence of compatibility, right? According to our judgment, the compatibility of the two worlds that were connected seems to be very high, Aleia directly explained. Therefore, it's very likely that when the world between was in turmoil, the two worlds were also connected, and it seems like it happened more than once. If that was the case, then it was true. Before Noah came to the world between for the first time, many worlds had been destroyed and became broken feather-like existences. That proved that before that, there had been more than one large-scale upheaval in this between worlds, leading to the destruction of a large number of worlds. Because of the high compatibility, when the world between was in turmoil, the two worlds were also connected, which led to the players that we didn't know about being transferred to the other world. Gaia's tone was somewhat helpless. As expected, if it's not a world of one's own, even if one can obtain the help of the other world, one wouldn't be able to control the situation at any time. At the end of the day, we are only the restraining force of one world. It is impossible for us to interfere with other worlds. If it wasn't for the fact that the two worlds didn't reject our interference and even provided us with assistance, we wouldn't have been able to stop that player, Alea said. Originally, we were worried that the connection between the worlds would have an unnecessary effect on the existence of the world between, which was why we interfered. Now, it seems that the compatibility of the two worlds is high enough to accommodate each other. Since so many players did whatever they wanted in that world and didn't cause any negative effects, our interference is unnecessary. In other words, we won't care about it anymore. Gaia's tone became lighter. That's great. Taking care of our own world is already troublesome enough. If we also have to take care of other worlds, it would be too tiring. No matter what, it's been hard on you, Alea said to Noah. Leave the rest to us. You can continue to collect world fragments in other worlds and increase your strength. Alea's words made Noah fall into silence. Noah sighed and suddenly opened his mouth. Should I improve my strength? Then, to what extent do I need to increase my strength? This time, it was Gaia and Alea's turn to fall into silence. I know, to deal with an opponent that has the ability to bring chaos to the world between, I have to become stronger. Noah couldn't help but speak his mind. But, is my current strength still not enough? Since he obtained the power called authority in the world of God Slayer and completed the great cause of killing God, except for Orpheus of Demon High School, Noah has never encountered a decent opponent. Now, with LV4 and the ability value of the SSS stage, Noah has no problem even if he uses 2 of the authority of the 10 avatars for a long time. Even if he goes all out, it is possible to use 3 avatars. Even so, is Noah's strength still not enough? Little Noah, don't worry. Gaia smiled bitterly. You will understand the real purpose of increasing your strength in the future. The real purpose of increasing my strength? Noah was slightly stunned. What does this mean? It's still the same sentence, you will understand sooner or later, Alea said faintly. So, you just focus on increasing your strength, that's enough. Hearing this, Noah could only nod helplessly. Looking at the pieces of feathers that were wandering around, Noah didn't know how long it took, but he made up his mind and said, in that case, help me choose a world with a higher level of strength. Chapter 1251. Whoosh. This was a somewhat hurried whistling sound of the wind. When Noah once again experienced the feeling of entering a brand new world, the sound of the wind immediately drilled into Noah's ears. Some of the fierce wind was like a wave hitting Noah's body, causing a trace of doubt to emerge in Noah's heart, who had not yet had the time to open his eyes. Such a strong wind, could it be that I descended to the cliff? This was Noah's first thought after arriving in this world. Then, when such a thought rose in Noah's heart, Noah felt it. He felt a sense of weightlessness. The feeling was as if the ground beneath his feet had suddenly disappeared. It was also as if he had been thrown high into the sky without any warning, causing Noah's entire body to float. The familiar feeling of weightlessness made Noah's heart surge with an ominous premonition. This feeling, could it be that I'm about to fall into the rhythm of some big bathhouse? Recalling the scene when he first arrived in the world of looking for a chance encounter in the underground city, Noah's face first turned green, and then he quickly opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, Noah saw it. He saw a strange scenery that he had never seen before. In front of his sight was the horizon that spread out like a carpet. In the center of the horizon was a stunning cliff. In the middle of such a strange scenery, there was a city. It was a city shrouded in a huge curtain. It felt like there were many huge tents forming a huge camp, and the city was tightly surrounded by walls. This was the first scene that Noah saw after arriving in this world. Even when traveling between different worlds, he had never seen such a strange scene. Looking at the strange city in the center of the strange scenery below, Noah finally understood his situation. There was a fierce wind whistling around. The ground looked so far away. On the contrary, the sky that should have felt so far away seemed to be within reach, and the distance was surprisingly close. Coupled with the fact that there was no feeling of being on the ground at all, it told Noah that he was in the middle of the air. Moreover, he was very high up in the air. It was a long story, but the whole process, from Noah's feet losing support, to the feeling of weightlessness attacking Noah's body, to Noah opening his eyes and seeing the strange scenery in front of him, the whole process did not even take a second. So it's really like this. Therefore, Noah only had time to let out such an unbearable cry, and his whole body fell down. Oh! Wah! Ah! Almost at the same time, three voices containing completely different emotions went into Noah's ears at the same time. The emotion contained in the first voice was curiosity. The emotion in the second voice was surprise. The emotion in the third voice was calmness. The three different voices all sounded in Noah's ears, but none of them were panicked. It didn't sound like they were thrown high up in the air, doing free fall, and the strong wind pressure made their skin tingle. Although there were many things that needed to be investigated, Noah still recognized it. In addition to himself, there were three other people like Noah, falling from a height of at least 4,000 meters. As a result, it was Noah himself who had the most real panic. What the hell is going on? Not to mention Noah. In such a strange world, there were three other people falling from a high altitude with Noah. It was strange no matter how he thought about it. However, now was not the time to think about this. Feeling the increasingly strong wind pressure, looking at the ground getting closer and closer, Noah whispered softly. Flight, worn on Noah's neck, the wing-shaped necklace with the magic effect of flight flashed a burst of light. Then, Noah's body gradually offset the weightlessness and strong wind pressure. Like a feather, he was suspended in the air. However, Noah was the only one who could fly. For some reason, the three people who fell from a high altitude with Noah were like meteorites, brushing past Noah's side and continued to fall. For a moment, Noah saw the appearance of the three people. It was a combination of one man and two women. Without much time to think, Noah controlled his body, his whole body fell, and his feet stepped on the void. Dong! Accompanied by the sound of the air vibrating, Noah's body was like an arrow leaving the bow. With the speed of a gust of wind, he quickly swept to the falling combination of one man and two women. And when he swept to the side of the three people, Noah immediately stretched out his hands and hugged the two girls, one in each hand, to stop the falling trend. As for the remaining young man, he could only heavily fall into a lake on the ground under Noah's gaze. Pang! A huge splash followed the fall of a person from a high altitude and exploded. The two girls who were held in Noah's arms and avoided the fate of falling into the lake tilted their heads. They didn't understand the current situation, and even the reason why they could now float in the air was confused. Looking at the big splash and the two girls in his arms who tilted their heads with a puzzled face, but didn't panic and scream like ordinary people who fell from a high altitude, Noah raised his head, looked at the clear sky, and sighed. What kind of godly development is this? A minute later, on the shore of the lake, 4 people landed on the turf one after another. To be more precise, it should be said that Noah fell from the sky with a girl in each hand and landed lightly on the ground. And the unfortunate young man who fell into the lake climbed out of the lake and sat on the turf with his body wet. Until then, Noah saw the full appearance of the 3 people who fell from midair with him. The unfortunate one who fell into the lake was a young man who wore a student uniform from an unknown school. He had light blonde hair and wore a pair of headphones on his head. He seemed to be 17 or 18 years old. The one who was held in Noah's arms was a young lady who had beautiful black waist-length hair, with a crimson bow-style hairband tied on both sides of her hair. She exuded a noble temperament. The remaining one who also avoided the fate of falling into the lake because of Noah was a young lady with short flaxen hair that reached her shoulders. Rather than saying that she was petite, it was better to say that she was simply slender. She wore a shirt-style windbreaker and shorts, looking very quiet, and was holding a cat in her hand. Undoubtedly, until just now, the group had just fallen from a height of more than 4,000 meters. However, among the 4 people present, even excluding Noah, the other 3 people didn't feel surprised at all. Instead, they were quite calm. Even the young lady who looked like a young lady had the time to thank Noah. Although I'm dissatisfied with the behavior of hugging a lady for the first time, but for the sake of being saved, I still thank you. Her voice was very light and pleasant, but there was a pride that others couldn't ignore. The other young lady also thanked Noah softly. Thank you. The young lady's voice was very calm, so calm that it made people feel a little cold. As for the remaining young man in uniform and headphones, he was wringing the water on his clothes while glancing at Noah with an unruly smile on his face. We all fell from a high altitude, and only 2 people could be saved out of the 3. One of them was a man, and the other 2 were women. In the end, you didn't hesitate to choose to save 2 women. You're quite capable, aren't you? The corners of Noah's mouth twitched slightly. Noah just casually saved the 2 people who were closer to him. He didn't deliberately only save the women and ignore the men. His gaze swept across the young man with an unruly smile, the young lady with a noble temperament, and the quiet young lady with a cat in her arms. Noah raised his head and looked at the sky again. After a long while, he let out a deep sigh. Why do I feel like there will be more disasters? Chapter 1252. In the faint sound of breaking through the air, Noah flew into the sky again. With the advantage of being at a high altitude, he looked around. Perhaps because of the height, the horizon that he saw from above 4,000 meters was no longer visible. He couldn't even see the curtain in the strange city. All Noah could see was a high wall in front of him. It was surrounded by a dense forest. At this time, Noah was above a lake in the forest. Although he didn't know where the forest was, being able to find the location of the city so easily made Noah feel a little relieved. Noah, who was observing the terrain, didn't notice anything. On the ground, the young man in a student uniform looked at Noah with interest after wringing out the water on his body. He smiled at Noah and said, "Don't worry, Noah. Hey, little brother over there, you seem to have an interesting power." Not only the young man, but the other 2 girls also looked at Noah with interest. "It can really fly." The young lady clicked her tongue in wonder. "I thought he used some kind of camouflage. So powerful." The quiet girl was also a little surprised. "He's just like a bird, in the air." Noah, who clearly heard the words of the 3 people below, withdrew his gaze from the surroundings and looked down. He looked at the man and 2 women who fell from the sky with him and observed him with interest. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. "That's true, but you're just interested. You're not surprised at all, right? Wasn't that right?" If it was an ordinary person who fell from a height of more than 4,000 meters, how could they be so calm? However, the 3 people here all looked as if nothing had happened. They didn't look like they had just fallen from a high altitude. To put it nicely, it was because he was skilled and daring. To put it bluntly, they were careless. If possible, Noah hoped it was the former. At least, he wouldn't get into trouble. Is there anything more surprising than being suddenly thrown into a high altitude? The young man with headphones just curled his lips and put his hand in his uniform pocket. "Well, let me ask. Don't tell me that you suddenly appeared here because you received a strange letter. Since you're asking this question, it means that you're also here because you received the letter, right?" The young lady put one hand on her waist and cast her gaze on the quiet young lady holding the cat. "Looking at you, it's probably the same, right?" The quiet girl holding the cat nodded gently. She seemed to be absent-minded and seemed to be a little quiet. She didn't want to talk at all. Only Noah slowly descended from the air, landed on the ground, and looked at the group of people. Letter. What letter? Such a sentence attracted the gazes of the other three people. If you ask this, it means that you are different from us. You didn't appear here after receiving a strange letter. The young man's face once again showed an unruly smile. Plus, you know how to fly. Interesting, really interesting. It seems that this place is more interesting than I thought. Hearing this, Noah slightly frowned and fell into deep thought. Although he didn't know what was going on, the three people in front of him didn't seem to be from here. They were suddenly sent here after receiving a letter. This was somewhat similar to Noah's situation. The difference was that Noah came here from outside the world, while the three people in front of him were suddenly sent here from somewhere else. In other words, even if there were 4 people here, none of them had any understanding of the current situation. Whether it was the young man in the student uniform, the noble girl, or the quiet girl, they were all like Noah. They were new here and didn't know anything. Anyway, let's introduce ourselves. Noah sorted out his thoughts and looked at the 3 people in front of him. My name is Noah, Noah Doria. You can just call me Noah. Oh. A foreigner. The young man slightly raised his eyebrows and said indifferently. I'm 16 Knights of Reverse. You can call me whatever you want. I'm Jo Yuasuka. The noble girl introduced herself in a dignified tone. As you can see, I'm just a girl in distress. Haruhibuyao. The quiet girl still holding the cat in her arms said concisely. Same as above. Meow, the cat in the arms of the girl called Haruhibuyao also didn't want to be left out. Looking at the 3 people in front of him introducing themselves in a very unique way, for some reason, Noah felt a headache coming on. Intuition told Noah that if he continued to stay with these 3 people, it would cause all kinds of trouble. Because of this consideration, Noah decided to speak. Since you don't know each other before, and you don't look like the type who can't live without others, I think we should just go our separate ways here. Hey, you're proposing such a cold solution right away. Aren't you a bit too unreasonable? 16 Knights of Reverse said this, but his face showed that he completely agreed with this idea. Well, but this seems to be more interesting. I'll agree for now. Under normal circumstances, as fellow humans who have come to an unfamiliar place, whether it's from an emotional or rational point of view, it would be more beneficial for us to stick together, right? Zhou Yuanfei now crossed his arms and smiled arrogantly. But you're right. I, Jo Yuasuka, don't want to rely on others. Don't think that I'll cry and beg you to take me in like a weak girl. I'm fine. Haruhibu Yao's expression didn't even change. I'm not alone anyway. I have the tricolor cat with me. Meow, the tricolor cat in Haruhibu Yao's arms immediately let out a sound of agreement. In this regard, Noah just shrugged. If that's the case, then that's great. Then, everyone, let's go our separate ways here. I hope we'll have a chance to meet again in the future. 16 Knights of Reverse, Jo Yuasuka, and Haruhibu Yao immediately spoke up. I hope that the next time we meet again, we won't fall from a high altitude like today. I feel the same. Same. Leaving this conversation as the end, the group of men and women who had just arrived immediately turned around and left without any hesitation. Moreover, they left in 4 completely different directions. They didn't have the slightest bit of hesitation. Logically speaking, when they just arrived at an unfamiliar place, even excluding Noah, the other 3 should be somewhat uneasy. But 16 Knights of Reverse, Jo Yuasuka, and Haruhibu Yao didn't have that kind of emotion. They were extremely calm and self-centered. This mentality was completely different from ordinary people. However, it was precisely because of this abnormality that these 3 people would appear here. Just when Noah, 16 Knights of Reverse, Joyu Asuka, and Haruhibu Yao were about to go their separate ways, a panicked voice finally sounded. Wait, wait. Please wait a moment. The moment the panicked voice sounded, 16 Knights of Reverse, Joyu Asuka, and Haruhibu Yao all stopped in their tracks. Noah's footsteps also slightly paused, but in his heart, he knew that this was bad. Sure enough, it's not that easy to leave. This time, I can confirm that staying with these people is definitely going to be a big problem. With this thought in mind, Noah decided to ignore the sudden cry and quickened his pace. Just as he was about to charge into the thicket in front of him, a figure nimbly leaped in front of Noah and blocked his path. It was a girl. She looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. She had a head of water blue waist-length hair. She wore a somewhat provocative miniskirt and silk stockings. Her appearance was quite eye-catching, and she was very beautiful. The girl also had a pair of water blue ears on her head. It was a pair of rabbit ears. Long rabbit ears. Such an unusual appearance made Noah, who was about to leave without caring about anything else, stop in his tracks and blink his eyes. Rabbit Girl. Chapter 1253. Bunny Girl. This was Noah's first impression of the bunny-eared girl who suddenly appeared in front of him. The impression made the rabbit-eared young lady spread her arms and stood in front of Noah, her ears perked up as she refuted strongly. Black Bunny is not a bunny girl. Black Bunny is known as the Moon Bunny of the Hakata aristocracy. Moon Bunny. Noah blinked his eyes again and said with some uncertainty. The Moon Bunny you speak of, is it the kind of bunny that lives on the moon? That's right. The girl who called herself Black Bunny said with her head held high. That's why Black Bunny is not a bunny girl. 16 Knights looked at Black Bunny with a scrutinizing gaze. She looked at Black Bunny's seductive thighs that were exposed outside of the provocative miniskirt and a pair of large breasts in front of her. Then she carefully observed Black Bunny's beautiful figure and finally gave her a thumbs up. No, I also think it's good that you're a bunny girl. That's right, that's right. Joyuen Asuka nodded. It's good that you're a bunny girl. Is it a bunny girl? Haruhi Hiroyuki looked at Black Bunny's long ears with curiosity in his eyes. Is it a bunny girl? I'm not a bunny girl. Black Bunny raised her voice. Please listen to Black Bunny, okay? Well, it doesn't matter if you're a bunny girl or a moon bunny. In short, can you please move aside? Noah said with a fake smile. I feel that if I continue to stay here, all kinds of troublesome things will happen. I have to leave quickly. Move aside. Bunny girl. That's why Black Bunny is not a bunny girl. Black Bunny shouted with a voice that sounded like she was about to cry. Also, Black Bunny can't let you leave. Please listen to Black Bunny obediently. Hearing this, Noah went silent. After a while, Noah sighed. There's no other way. Noah suddenly raised his head after his words sounded. He clenched one of his hands into a fist. Immediately, a fist heavily smashed onto the ground while accompanied by a frightening sharp wind sound. Dong! With Noah as the epicenter, the violent impact immediately carried an astonishing amount of sand and gravel as it exploded. Wah! The sudden and powerful impact made Haruhito Masaaki, Komodo Asuka, and Haruhito Masaaki cry out in alarm. They subconsciously used their hands to block in front of their bodies. Their clothes fluttered in the wind as if they had encountered a strong wind. Reverse 16 Knights also subconsciously used a hand to block in front of his body. He stood against the wind, but a bright light burst out from his eyes. In the next instant, Noah's voice resounded from the center of the berserk shockwave and the dense dust. Well then, everyone, see you later. Leaving behind these words, at the top of the thick sand and dust, a figure rushed into the sky as if it was about to break through the horizon. It fled in the opposite direction of everyone present. Cough, 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 cough. Joyuan flying bird coughed in the thick sand and let out a somewhat angry cry. Is it necessary to go to this extent just to leave? Haruai Biao also coughed slightly, but his eyes were filled with surprise. He has a powerful physical ability. Isn't that so? Noah's punch directly blasted the ground, creating a small crater with a diameter of 2 to 3 meters. With the physical ability of a human, that was already an impossible realm to reach. Only Haruhito, while coughing in the thick sand and dust, was still anxiously shouting at Noah, who had almost turned into a small black dot that would disappear in the next second. Why didn't you listen to Haruhito properly? Just as the other three girls had their own reactions, Reverse 16 Knights stared at Noah, who had turned into a small black dot. Ha! Ha ha ha! Ha 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 ha! In the next second, Reverse 16 Knights suddenly burst out laughing. That laughter was filled with excitement and joy. Very good. Very good. It's really very good. You brat. You're more interesting than I thought. While laughing, Reverse 16 Knights turned his head and looked at Haruhito with an arrogant smile on his face. Hey! The bunny girl over there. Didn't I say so? Haruhito shouted almost as a conditioned reflex. Haruhito is not a bunny girl. However, Reverse 16 Knights ignored Haruhito's rebuttal and said this to himself. Don't you want that guy to stay? Then let me help you catch him back. Haruhito was stunned. Without giving Haruhito time to react, Reverse 16 Knights turned his gaze back to the small black dot that was about to disappear in the sky. With an excited smile, his body slightly bent down. Bang! Like an explosion, a shockwave exploded beneath 16 Knights' feet. Reverse 16 Knights was like a rocket that soared into the sky. It was so violent that it crushed the ground. Amidst the ear-piercing sound of the air being torn apart, it used an extremely shocking speed to rush towards the horizon. On the other side, Noah, who was flying in the sky, looked at the forest that was getting farther and farther away from him, and gently exhaled a breath. Although I don't know why, it's great to leave those three guys who seem to be extremely troublesome. With such a sentence, Noah turned his gaze to the tall wall at the end of the forest, which was the city that he saw when he fell from the sky. No matter what, let's go to the city first and find a way to understand this world. Disregarding Reverse 16 Knights, Distant Flying Bird, and Haruhito Hikari, the girl who suddenly appeared in front of Noah and claimed to be Haruhito seemed to be an aboriginal of this world. If it was Haruhito, she should be able to introduce the situation of this world to Noah, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't look like a simple appearance. There must be a purpose, right? Noah shook his head with a smile. Although I don't know what that bunny girl is going to do, it's better to stay away from here. With such an idea, Noah abandoned other thoughts and prepared to move in the direction of the city. Whoosh! It was also at this moment that a sharp sound of something breaking through the air resounded from afar. It was as if a sound wave had come from the ground below. At the same time, within the range of Noah's sensing ability, an aura was like a rocket soaring into the sky, approaching Noah at an astonishing speed. Noah narrowed his eyes, turned his head abruptly, and looked at the ground below. There, a figure rushed into the sky at an extreme speed, and in the moment when Noah turned his head, it rushed in front of Noah. The next moment, Reverse 16 Knights' arrogant smile was imprinted in Noah's eyes. Don't be in a hurry to leave. Noah's pupils constricted as he saw 16th Knight's arrogant smile. Your physical fitness seems to be very good, huh? After saying that, Reverse 16 Knights suddenly stretched out his hand, grabbed Noah's collar, twisted his body, and faced downward. Come and try to fight with me. Little brother. It was like throwing a shot put. Reverse 16 Knights grabbed Noah's collar tightly and threw Noah down. Suddenly, Noah's figure was thrown down by Reverse 16 Knights at an astonishing speed, and with a terrible sonic boom, he fell madly to the ground, rubbing against the air. Seeing this, Reverse 16 Knights smiled excitedly. His figure that was in free fall twisted again, and with a muffled explosion, he swooped down toward Noah, who was falling madly. Above the forest, two streamers were like meteorites, falling from the sky with a fiery heat wave caused by the violent friction with the atmosphere. The sharp sound of breaking through the air echoed in his ears. Noah's figure was falling at an astonishing speed, and his heart was full of surprise. Reverse 16 Knights actually has such a degree of power. Whether it was the speed of soaring into the sky or the power of throwing Noah down, it could be said to be amazing. That speed almost made Noah unable to react. That power made Noah, who was grabbed by the collar, unable to resist, causing him to be thrown down fiercely. Raising his head, Noah looked at Reverse 16 Knights, who was chasing him with an arrogant and unruly smile on his face, and his eyes flickered. This guy is not simple. Chapter 1254. Ping dash. The deafening explosion caused a burst of thick sand and dust to rise from a corner of the forest and spread to the sky. In the sand and dust, two figures suddenly retreated, opened up a distance, and confronted each other. Soon, the thick sand and dust in the air began to slowly dissipate, exposing the situation inside under the sun. Taking a closer look, there was a meteorite crater in the middle of the two figures confronting each other. It was made by Noah and Reverse 16 Knights when they landed on the ground one after another. Yes. It was made by foot. Because, whether it was Noah or Reverse 16 Knights, they both fell at a shocking speed. Of course, it would cause such a scene when they landed. Looking at Noah opposite, Reverse 16 Knights took off the headphones on his head and let them hang around his neck, then he grinned at Noah. How does it feel to fall at the speed of the third universe? If I have to give a feeling, it would be surprise, right? Noah patted the dust stuck to his body and looked at Reverse 16 Knights. Then, can you tell me why you stopped me? Well, don't be so cold. Reverse 16 Knights opened and closed his palms slightly, but the smile on his face remained unchanged. It's not easy to meet such an interesting opponent, how can I not vent? Vent? Noah raised his eyebrows. In other words, you stopped me just to let me accompany you to vent. How is it? Reverse 16 Knights laughed. Very interesting, right? Sigh. Noah sighed faintly. If I said it's not interesting, would you let me go? I already said, don't be so cold, right? Reverse 16 Knights clenched one hand into a fist, and a terrifying force gathered in his fist that was undetectable. Isn't it good to play a little? As soon as he finished speaking, 16 Knights twisted his feet, causing the ground to tremble. At the same time, he stirred up a strong impact and dust. With the astonishing speed known as the third universe's speed, his body tore through the air, and with an ear-piercing screech, he shot towards Noah's direction. That frightening speed made Noah's dynamic vision only able to faintly see a black shadow. Noah, who had fully experienced the so-called speed of the third universe after reversing the 16 Knights, did not hesitate at all. The energy source in his body suddenly turned into a source of mana, allowing the endless mana to become a surging torrent that flowed inside his body. Whang! Mana patterns spread out on Noah's calf like electric wires. Facing the amazing speed of 16 Knights, Noah's LV, for level and SSS level, agility was not enough to deal with it. Therefore, Noah did not hesitate to use enhance magic to strengthen his feet. With a turn of his feet, his figure flickered rapidly, and he strangely flashed backward. After the strengthening of enhance magic and LV, for level, agility, Noah's speed increased to a terrifying level. However, even so, 16 Knight's figure still crossed the void like a rocket, like a maggot in the tarsal bone, and instantly caught up with Noah, who was retreating. The extreme speed known as the Third Universe's speed could be seen from this. Even with LV4 level and SSS level, agility a blessing, and even after the strengthening of enhanced magic, Noah's speed was still not as good as 16 Knight's. Noah's outstanding sensing ability allowed him to control the charging trajectory of reverse 16 Knights very well. Noah could only turn his feet again, and his figure flashed violently, leaving an afterimage in the same place, and as if teleporting, he instantly appeared dozens of meters away. However, when Noah's figure just appeared in front of him, a sharp sound broke through the air again. He saw that 16 Knights with an unchanging happy smile, like a bullet, crossed the space and once again caught up with Noah's figure. "What's wrong? What's wrong?" 16 Knights laughed out loud. "Do you only know how to run, little brother?" Hearing this, Noah's eyes narrowed, and there was a little anger in his heart. Although 16 Knights' provocation was very low level, and with Noah's mentality, he wouldn't be so easily provoked. However, being provoked for no reason didn't mean that Noah wouldn't feel angry. So, while Noah retreated, he stretched out a hand and snapped his fingers. Viroom. Golden ripples undulated in the space around Noah, and various weapons such as sabers, swords, spears, halberds, and so on popped out from the ripples, all of which were pointed at reverse 16 Knights, who was charging over at an astonishing speed. Immediately after, the sabers, swords, spears, halberds, and all kinds of treasures turned into streams of laser-like flowing light, covering the sky and covering the earth as they shot towards the direction of 16 Knights. With the speed of 16 Knights reversal, he should be able to easily avoid all the treasures that were shooting towards him from all directions, right? Then, it would be time for Noah to fight back. However, in the next moment, Noah was surprised again. Facing the overwhelming number of treasures that were shooting towards him, 16 Knights did not dodge at all. Instead, he chose to advance instead of retreating. There was an expression that represented violence on his face, and 16 Knights clenched his fists, facing the relics that were shooting at him. Like thunder, he pulled out shadows of his fists, and his fists bombarded continuously. Clang, 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 clang. The crisp sound of steel colliding with steel could be heard continuously. Reverse 16 Knights actually used a pair of ordinary fists to smash away all of the treasures that were shooting at him from all directions. "Whoa!" Noah exclaimed in shock. He smashed the relics with his fists. That was something that could only be done with amazing strength and a strong body. At least, Hercules, who was in the form of a servant, would never be able to do such a thing. Even if it was Noah, even with the LV4 strength and durability buffs, as well as the blessing of the sword to weaken physical attacks, plus the enhanced magic buff, he still couldn't do it. In other words, the young man named 16 Knights' physical ability was stronger than Noah and Hercules. Moreover, he was much stronger. His strength was enough to smash the relics away. His speed was comparable to the speed of the Third Universe. In this way, it would be difficult for the young man named 16 Knights to use a simple relic to shoot at him. Under such circumstances, 16 Knights, who was using a pair of ordinary fists to smash the relics that were shooting at him, rushed towards Noah with a burning expression. His clenched fists were accompanied by a terrifying fist wind, and he went straight to Noah. The fist with the terrifying fist wind was gradually magnified in Noah's vision. Noah's eyes were sharp, and he clenched his fist. OM. The magic lines that looked like electric wires spread out on Noah's arms. Clang! A dazzling light flickered on Promise's clenched arms. A red gauntlet that looked like a dragon's claw appeared on Noah's arm, and the jade on the back of his hand flashed a gorgeous light. Boost! A voice was heard from the gauntlet that looked like a dragon's claw. In the next second, the fist with the terrifying fist wind collided with the dragon's claw in midair. Dong! A deafening and terrifying muffled sound rang out in response, setting off a terrifying and violent shock wave that swept across the space. The shocking impact cracked the ground inch by inch, and then it exploded, stirring up a large amount of gravel. At the center of the impact, Noah's and 16 Knights' fists collided, causing 16 Knights to laugh heartily. Great, great. Very good. Hey! There's actually someone who can fight with me. It couldn't be better. With such a laugh, 16 Knights raised his other fist, and his sharp gaze pierced Noah. Then take another punch from me. Seeing that 16 Knights had once again raised his fist that could smash away a noble artifact, Noah clenched his other hand tightly. Dong! The collision of fists caused a shockwave that seemed to shake the heavens and earth to shatter. Chapter 1255. Boom! Amidst the deafening roar, the terrible impact swept out like a storm, causing the surrounding trees to fall down radially. They smashed heavily on the ground, raising bursts of sand and dust. However, just as the sand and dust rose up, it was suddenly blown away by the storm-like impact that swept around. Immediately afterward, in the center of the impact, two figures flew out respectively, bringing with them a harsh sound of breaking the air. Noah firmly planted his feet on the ground, but his figure still couldn't stop retreating, leaving a long gully under his plowing. It was not until he reached a distance of hundreds of meters that he gradually stopped. However, in the next moment, Noah's expression suddenly changed, and his figure suddenly retreated to the side without any warning. Swish! A figure suddenly appeared in front of Noah at almost the same instant his body retreated. A punch was thrown, and it violently smashed into the ground where Noah was standing earlier. Boom! The amazing impact exploded on the ground in an instant, stirring up gravel all over the sky and shooting toward the surroundings. Boom, 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 boom. Noah, who was still retreating, threw out heavy punches again and again, shattering all the gravel. At the same time, the figure with amazing speed once again flashed in front of Noah. The fist brought with it a fierce fist wind, slamming toward Noah's chest. Seeing that Reverse 16 Knights was pursuing him relentlessly, Noah's eyes turned cold, and he stopped retreating. This time, Noah didn't dodge at all. Taking advantage of the moment when Reverse 16 Knights punched, he also turned around and kicked out fiercely. Boom! Amidst a neat series of muffled sounds, the punches and kicks that contained a terrifying force finally landed on the bodies of the two parties who launched the attack. Suddenly, Noah and Reverse 16 Knights both let out a muffled groan. Their whole body bounced like a ball and heavily smashed on the ground, causing the ground to tremble. Once again, two more craters appeared. Lying in the crater, Noah clutched his stuffy chest and clenched his hand that was covered by the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Using the power of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, to LV4 and the all-around value to the SSS stage, and after the strengthening of the strengthening magic, my physical ability has been multiplied. Even after taking a punch from that guy, it still hurts so much. Even if this level of power was not comparable to Aconarolia, it was still much stronger than the opponents that Noah had encountered before. And a person with this level of power, a student who looked only 17 or 18 years old. What kind of person was this 16 Knights reversal? Cough, cough, cough. On the other side, Reverse 16 Knights also clutched his painful chest, spat out a mouthful of blood, and struggled to get up from the crater-like crater. It hurts, it really hurts. How long has it been since I was in such pain? I forgot, damn it. Separated by a considerable distance, the two people who stood up from the crater at the same time looked at each other, and a strong fighting spirit appeared in their eyes at the same time. Whether it was Noah or Reverse 16 Knights, they were the kind of people who had not met an opponent for a long time because of their powerful strength. Noah was still okay, at least he had a fight with Orpheus, who was known as the infinite dragon god. He also didn't use his authority, but he used his full strength when fighting the black dragon Iconarolia in the Tacit Revelation. However, going back to 16th Night, there were only a few ordinary humans in the place where she originally lived. In that kind of world, Reverse 16 Nights was simply invincible in the true sense, and there was no opponent who could fight with all his strength. It was because of this that Reverse 16 Nights was so excited after seeing Noah's strength. At that moment, Noah and Reverse 16 Nights both showed a smile full of fighting spirit, and said a sentence at the same time. Sure enough, choosing to come here was the right choice. Noah asked Gaia and Alea to help him choose a world with a higher level of power, so that he could get a qualified opponent. Although Noah could enter a state of self-enhancement because his authority had once been fused with the power called limit, the characteristics of the God Slayer meant that he could become stronger faster in battle. As for Reverse 16 Nights, he longed to have an opponent. With too much power, no matter what he did, he could easily solve it. That kind of day without any excitement was simply torture for the 16 Nights of Retrospection. In view of this, Noah and Reverse 16 Nights both felt their blood boil because of the excitement in their hearts. Bang! At a certain moment, the two of them stomped on the ground at the same time, causing the ground to burst open. Riding the wind, they rushed towards each other. The first to make a move was Reverse 16 Nights. Reversing 16 Nights was still the same as before. His ordinary fist blasted out with earth-shattering momentum, smashing in Noah's direction like a bolt of lightning. Noah clenched his hand that was equipped with the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear and stared at the lightning-like fist. At the critical moment, he suddenly leaned to the side, causing the powerful fist to brush past his shoulder and land in the air. Then, Noah also threw out a punch, landing on Reverse 16 Nights' body. Bang! A low and deep sound rang out, causing the ground to be split open by the strong wind. Reverse 16 Nights shot out like a cannonball. Along the way, he directly smashed dozens of boulders and countless trees. Then, he stabilized his body. With one hand on the ground, he knelt on one knee and landed on the ground. However, before 16 Nights could catch his breath, an ear-piercing sound of something breaking through the wind suddenly rang out. Reverse 16 Nights' face immediately changed. Without thinking, his body bounced and retreated like a crouching leopard. At this moment, Noah, who had turned into an afterimage, brought along a shocking gust of wind and power as he fiercely charged in the direction of Reverse 16 Nights. Bang! Noah's body suddenly slammed into Reverse 16 Nights' body, causing a deep muffled sound to resound in the field. Reverse 16 Nights only felt that his whole body was impacted by a terrifying force, causing half of his body to become numb. But even so, Reverse 16 Nights still swallowed the muffled groan that rose up his throat and shouted, "Don't be so arrogant." Completely ignoring the numbness in his body, Reverse 16 Nights forcefully twisted his body, and with a quick spin, his knee slammed heavily into Noah's abdomen. Bang! A muffled sound that caused one's heart to shrink rang out once again, causing Noah, who had suffered a heavy blow, to tremble. Immediately after, it was replaced by a ruthless look. Borrowing the power of the 16 Nights reversal, he twisted his leg, spun his body, and sent a kick flying out. Bang! In the terrifying sound of a boulder falling to the ground, Noah's foot directly kicked Reverse 16 Nights' chest. As a result, the two people who suffered a heavy blow at the same time flew out. After their bodies rubbed against the ground for hundreds of meters, they slowly came to a stop. Ha! Ha! Rapid gasps began to sound in the field. Noah and Reverse 16 Nights covered their chests at the same time, stood up with difficulty, and then laughed at the same time. The laughter was very soft at first. However, the laughter became louder and louder. In the end, the laughter had evolved into incisive laughter. Putting aside Reverse 16 Nights, it was quite rare for Noah to have such a performance. At least, usually, Noah didn't have the habit of suddenly laughing for no reason. As for the 16 nights reversal, after coming to this world, such hearty laughter had become more frequent. After an unknown amount of time, the two of them stopped laughing at the same time. Once again, their gazes met in mid-air, stomped on the ground, and rushed to each other violently. Bang 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 bang. In the corner of the forest, a series of muffled sounds that were accompanied by air waves continuously sounded. During this period, there was also the sound of the ground and the trees exploding. It lasted for a long time, a long time. Chapter 1256. When Black Rabbit, Jiuyuki, and Haruhi Hikari arrived at the place where the rumbling sound came from, the scene that appeared in front of the three girls made them stunned on the spot. First, what appeared in front of Black Rabbit, Jiuyuki, and Haruhi Hikari's eyes was an empty space. The trees were either broken in half or exploded into pieces, leaving only a few remnants of their roots. The ground was filled with tree fragments and stone debris. In such an open space, there were shocking craters all over the place. The places that didn't have craters were either cracked like spider webs or had long gullies. It was simply a mess. Immediately after, Noah and 16 Nights laid on the only undamaged spot in the open space, their bodies riddled with wounds. Both of them were gasping for air. If one looked closely, they would be able to see it. Whether it was Noah or Reverse 16 Nights, they both had a carefree expression on their faces. That expression was like an athlete who was sweating hard at a sports event. They were extremely satisfied. Looking at this scene, Kuroto Asuka, and the three girls fell into a state of speechlessness. After a while, Jiuyuki took a deep breath and held her head as if she had a headache. This place, is it because of the battle between those two people? It should be. Haruhi Hikari nodded and said with admiration. Those two people are so powerful. This kind of destructive power, this kind of power. Black Rabbit was in disbelief and excitement. She clenched her hands and made a praying gesture. Her face was full of joy. If it's them, they will be able to help me, help us. The three girls had different reactions. On the only undamaged spot, Noah and Reverse 16 Nights were lying on the ground. Their rapid breathing gradually calmed down. You're quite powerful, little brother. Reverse 16 Nights smiled with admiration and satisfaction. A normal person would definitely be dead after taking one of my punches. You've been punched so many times by me, yet you've only suffered such minor injuries. What exactly is your body made of? Hearing this, Noah glanced at Reverse 16 Nights and curled his lips. Shouldn't I be the one asking this question? Reverse 16 Nights' physical ability was quite terrifying. It was so terrifying that Noah had to admit that he wasn't as good as him. If he didn't use Enhance Magic to strengthen his arms and legs, and Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet, boosted gear, to increase his physical ability, Noah wouldn't be able to fight with Reverse 16 Nights. If that was the case, he would definitely die a horrible death. On the other hand, the boosted gear that Noah created using the Weapon Refinement spell could activate the multiplier effect 5 times. Therefore, in the fight with Reverse 16 Nights, as time passed, Noah's advantage grew bigger and bigger. After the 5th time, Noah was able to suppress Reverse 16 Nights. However, even so, Reverse 16 Nights was still able to get up and swing his fist at Noah after being punched countless times by Noah, who had been boosted by the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear 5 times in a row. In the end, because the multiplier effect of the Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet could only be used for a short period of time before disappearing, Noah, who had lost the multiplier effect of the Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet, was instead suppressed by the 16 Nights. With the support of LV4 and SSS level endurance, coupled with the weakening of Sword's protection, Noah finally made it through. Next, Noah's fighting methods were not limited to punches and kicks. Sometimes, he used the Gate of Babylon to launch a salvo of attacks. Sometimes, he used the Cold Smelting to temper. Noah even created the White Dragon Emperor's Light Wings, Divine Dividing, in an attempt to weaken Reverse 16 Knights by having its ability. However, the salvo of attacks from the Noble Phantasm was blocked by Reverse 16 Knights' fists. The Cold Smelting that could temper the opponent and the White Dragon Emperor's Light Wings, Divine Dividing, that could weaken the opponent were ineffective against Reverse 16 Knights. That really surprised Noah for a long time. Therefore, if there was anyone who was more curious about the structure of another person's body, it would definitely be Noah, who was more curious about the structure of Reverse 16 Knights' body. As an ordinary human, how could his body be so powerful? Why was it that even the toughening and weakening abilities were ineffective against it? How could he still stand up after being hit so many times? These were all what Noah wanted to know. Of course, it was not until a long time later that Noah found out. The power of the 16 Knights of Reverse Time was called the Truth Unknown, also known as the Body Unknown power. Not only did it have the ability to shatter mountains and rivers, but it could also throw objects at the speed of the third universe. It was a power that could create miracles and destroy miracles. At the same time, it had the gift of shattering heaven and earth, and the gift of shattering power, which were two completely contradictory abilities. At the same time, Reverse 16 Knights also had the ability to nullify negative abilities such as petrification and curses, as well as a strong body that could resist instant death attacks. This was the reason why Noah's Cold Smelting and White Dragon Emperor's Light Wings, Divine Dividing, were ineffective against Reverse 16 Knights. However, even if he did not know this, Noah would still look at Reverse 16 Knights in a different light. In this battle, although Noah used the Noble Phantasm to launch a salvo of attacks against Reverse 16 Knights, he did not use any of his true name release, nor did he use Aster. Noah could not do anything against Reverse 16 Knights while keeping these powers. It was obvious how strong Reverse 16 Knights' power was. However, even if he used these methods, Noah did not think that he could easily defeat Reverse 16 Knights. This was because Noah had held back, and Reverse 16 Knights could also hold back. Therefore, unless a month had passed, Noah could release the power called Authority, without any restrictions. Otherwise, without using Authority, Noah really did not have the confidence to win against Reverse 16 Knights. At that moment, Noah struggled to get up and slowly stretched out a hand. Viroom. A golden ripple suddenly appeared above Noah's hand, and 2 bottles of blood-like bright red liquid were spat out, falling into Noah's palm. Noah directly opened the cap of one of the bottles of potion, and while drinking the bright red liquid, he threw the other bottle to Reverse 16 Knights. Drink. Reverse 16 Knights almost subconsciously stretched out his hand and caught the potion, shaking the bright red liquid inside, and curiously asked, "What is this?" Noah did not speak, but drank the potion in one gulp. In the next second, Noah's body began to emit a faint soft light, and the injuries all over his body gradually recovered under the soft light. Reverse 16 Knights suddenly raised his eyebrows, looked at the potion in his hand with interest, then suddenly smiled, opened the cap, and directly drank the potion in the bottle. Immediately, Reverse 16 Knights' body also emitted a faint soft light, and his injuries gradually recovered. It didn't take long for the injuries on their bodies to completely disappear. Kororobi, Kiyoshi, and Haruhibu Yaichi all let out a surprised voice. "What kind of potion is this?" Kiyoshi could not hide her curiosity and asked. "It's actually so magical." Haruhibu Yaichi with the tricolored cat on his head also nodded. Only the black rabbit said thoughtfully as it looked at the 2 completely empty potion bottles. It should be some kind of healing gift, right? Gift? Noah immediately looked at Kurorabi. What is the gift? That will be explained to you later. Kurorabi showed a cute smile. Before that, let me first express my welcome to you. Saying such a sentence, Kurorabi wanted to embrace the whole world, and opened his hands wide. Welcome to the world of Hakata. Chapter 1257. Box Court. With Noah as the leader, 16 Knights Retroactive, Jiu Yuao, and Kasuga Hibakusha were all slightly startled as they looked at each other. Obviously, no one knew what the box court that the Black Rabbit was talking about was. Everyone should be able to see the city over there, right? Black Rabbit seemed to have seen through everyone's thoughts as he pointed at the city with the curtains and huge walls. That is Box Court. Noah and the rest immediately turned their heads and looked at the city called Box Court. At the same time, Black Rabbit began to explain in a lively and cheerful manner. Although I don't need to say it, everyone should understand that you are not ordinary humans. Black Rabbit raised a finger. You all have a very special power in your body. Although this power is different and even comes from different systems, no matter what kind of power it is, it comes from all kinds of asuras, buddhas, demons, fairies, and stars. We call this power that is bestowed by all kinds of asuras, buddhas, demons, fairies, and even stars. Black Rabbit leaned forward and closed one of his eyes as he said in an extremely cute manner. It is precisely because all of you possess this power called grace that the Black Rabbit has sent all of you an invitation letter, inviting all of you to come to this world and play the game with us. Black Rabbit's words made the group of people present raise their brows one after another. That means... Jiu Yuao looked at Black Rabbit. The person who sent us the letter and sent us to this world is you. Yes. Black Rabbit nimbly took a small step back as if he was a real rabbit. You are all humans from different worlds. Black Rabbit knows that you are all existences with the highest level of grace, so I sent you an invitation letter and invited you to this world. Different worlds. Kiyoshi Asaka and Hiroi Buyao looked at each other with strange expressions on their faces. That. Kasuga Hibakusha raised his hand and asked. That means, other than the world that we know and exist in, there are actually many other worlds. Yes. Black Rabbit gave an affirmative answer. Everyone, just think of it as a parallel world. As long as you know that you all come from different worlds, that's enough. Parallel world. Noah murmured, then shrugged and said to Black Rabbit helplessly. Then, Miss Black Rabbit, how many invitations did you send out? Black Rabbit sent out a total of 3 invitations. Black Rabbit's cheerful tone suddenly weakened as she glanced at Noah, 16 Knights Retroactive, Jiu Yuao, and Kasuga Hibakusha. Black Rabbit doesn't understand why 4 people were summoned to this box court. As soon as he said that, 16 Knights Retrograde, Jiu Yuan Flying Bird, and Hiroi Buyao all looked at Noah. Because at the beginning, Noah had already said that he did not receive a letter, which meant that he did not receive an invitation from the Black Rabbit. In other words, Noah wasn't summoned into this world by Black Rabbit. Under the gaze of the group of people, Noah continued to ask with a calm expression. Then, what is the purpose of summoning people from different parallel worlds? After hearing Noah's words, the 3 of them turned their attention back to the Black Rabbit. Thus, Black Rabbit could only suppress this question in her heart, and her tone returned to its cheerful state. The reason why you've been summoned to this world is that all of you who have been bestowed with gifts are qualified to play the game of gifts in this world that is specially created for the bearers of powerful gifts to live interesting and happy lives. The game of blessings refers to a game that allows people who can use blessings to compete with each other. Black Rabbit explained. The winner of the game can receive a prize provided by the organizer of the game. Organizer. Jiu Yuao crossed her arms. You mean the organizer of the game? Yes. Sometimes, Azura gods who have nothing to do will organize games in the name of testing humans. There are also forces that organize games for various purposes. Black Rabbit continued to explain. Generally speaking, as long as you have a gift, you can participate in the former. However, the difficulty is very high, and it may even cause life-threatening situations. In contrast, the prizes obtained after winning are also very generous, and there is even a high chance of obtaining new gifts. Generally speaking, the latter requires one to prepare their own chips. Once the participant becomes the loser in the game, they must give the prepared chips to the organizer. Chips. Kasuga Hibakusha's expression became a little awkward. But we didn't bring anything valuable. Whether it's valuable items, land, benefits, reputation, or even humans themselves, or even their own blessings, they can all be used as chips. Black Rabbit's expression became a little more serious. Although if you lose, you will lose your original power and wealth, but if you win, you can also gain new power and wealth from others. This is a world where everything is based on this kind of game. So, participating in the game of blessings is a necessary part, and also the most important part. A world where everything is based on the game. Jiu Yuao narrowed her eyes. In other words, the game of blessings is equivalent to the law of this world, right? That's not wrong to think of it that way. Black Rabbit smiled cutely. However, in this world, there are also laws that prohibit illegal activities such as robbing or stealing. Using blessings to commit crimes is an unforgivable crime, and those who break the law will be punished. But that's just a side effect, right? 16 Knights Reversal suddenly smiled. After all, this is a world where everything is based on the game. The rules of the game of blessings are the real law. The winner can get what they want, and the loser has to pay the price, even if it's their life, right? You're right, Black Rabbit said with a smile. So, if you're afraid that your belongings will be taken away, you can just not participate in the game from the start. That way, you can at least get some safety assurance. 16 Knights Reversal said with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. What I mean is that there's no way to guarantee absolute safety. Can I take it that way? Black Rabbit was speechless. Since there are all kinds of Asuras, gods, and Buddhas, and all kinds of powerful beings gathered on this stage, then the strong and the weak are indispensable, Noah said calmly. The strong with power and the weak without power, it's obvious which side can guarantee absolute safety. The atmosphere became a little heavy all of a sudden. As though to disperse the heavy atmosphere, Noah and 16 Knights Reversal laughed at the same time and said in unison. But, what an interesting world. Noah and 16 Knights Reversal were taken aback. They looked at each other and laughed. I came to this world because I want to find qualified opponents. Noah spread out his hands. Since there are all kinds of Asuras, gods, and Buddhas here, it's really suitable. Same. 16 Knights Reversal grinned. Well, rather than looking for opponents, I'm looking for fun, right? Anyway, I hate a leisurely life without excitement and pursuits. Same for me. Jiu Fei now smiled sweetly. I'm tired of a monotonous life. That's why I came to this world. Same here. Haruai Hibu nodded. Same here. Then. Black Rabbit looked at Noah's group with anticipation and nervousness. Black Rabbit, can I invite everyone to join my community? Community. Noah's group was confused again. The so-called community refers to the various forces in this world. Black Rabbit quickly explained. No matter if it's the organizer or the participants, they must use the community's name to start the game. So, for those who come to this world, it's necessary to join a community first. Noah, 16 Knights Reversal, Jiu Fei Niao, and Haruai Hibu fell silent. Chapter 1258. To be honest, Noah did not have much resistance to joining any force. After all, Noah had joined various forces in various worlds. For example, the Magic Guide Guild, the police organization, the academy with research, the God's family, the underground tomb, and so on. Noah had indeed joined various forces. Therefore, for Noah, joining any force wasn't something that was worth resisting. However, blindly choosing which force to join was undoubtedly a very stupid thing to do. If there was a force, it meant that there was a struggle. Although, according to Black Rabbit, the box court was a world where everything was based on games, it was not without danger of life. It would be better to say that because of the existence of the gift game, in order to win all kinds of rewards, or even to obtain new gifts to enhance their own strength, the various forces called communities would definitely engage in all kinds of struggles. Under such circumstances, if one did not make the right choice and joined a community that they did not like, being bound by the rules of the community, then it would really be all kinds of trouble. Moreover, originally, Noah wanted to not get involved with 16 Knights, Zhou Yuanfei, and Hiroi Buyao, these three people who exuded the aura of problem children, which would cause all kinds of trouble, so he could not wait to escape. The fact that 16 Knights had suddenly found fault with them proved that these guys weren't people who would be easily led by the nose. In fact, they might even lead others by the nose and play around with the people around them. It was because he was afraid of this that Noah was eager to leave the side of these problem children. Now, with the intervention of 16 Knights, Noah had no choice but to be involved. 16 Knights, Zhou Yuanfei, and Hiroi Buyao were all summoned to the box court by Black Rabbit. Therefore, Black Rabbit had the obligation to explain the situation of this world to them. However, Black Rabbit did not have the obligation to explain to Noah who was not summoned. Now, Noah was under the guidance of Black Rabbit, so it would be too irresponsible of him to think about escaping. No matter what, he had to deal with it seriously. Just as Noah was thinking about this, 16 Knights expressed his stance. As for me, if this little brother joins, then I'll join as well, 16 Knights said arrogantly as he pointed at Noah. Although there are all kinds of Asura gods and Buddhas in this world, and it would be very interesting to compete with them, the fight between me and this little brother hasn't ended yet. I can't let this little brother run away. Noah's mouth twitched. Since it was to determine the victor, then they shouldn't stay in the same community, right? If they became companions, then wouldn't there be no way to seriously determine the victor? If it's me, I don't mind joining. Zhou Yufei glanced at Noah and said. However, this Mr. here has just proposed a plan to part ways. It's really strange for us to gather together now. But if we just listen to the plan to part ways like this, I feel like I'm being led by the nose. So, if this Mr. here wants to join, then I'll join as well. Noah opened his mouth wide in shock. Because he didn't want to listen to someone else's plan, he decided to follow the person who suggested it. What kind of logic was this? If it's me, I can join as well. Hiroi Buyao's gaze swept across Black Rabbit, 16 Knights, and Zhou Yufei, and finally landed on Noah. But, if they want to join with you, then I'll join as well. Noah almost vomited blood. Just because of this. Just because of this. Did he have to be so casual? As expected, no matter who it was, they were all troublesome children. However, this meant that Noah would represent everyone present to make the decision. Once Noah agreed to join Black Rabbit's community, then the four of them would all join together. Once Noah didn't agree to join Black Rabbit's community, then the four of them would all leave together. Inexplicably, the decision fell into Noah's hands. Thus, Black Rabbit looked at Noah with a pitiful gaze. Seeing this, Noah could only smile bitterly and look into Black Rabbit's eyes. Then, what kind of power is your community? At this moment, Noah saw it clearly. Black Rabbit's expression stiffened for a moment, then, that cute face was filled with smiles. That Black Rabbit's community is a very impressive community. Is it? Noah asked. How impressive is it? Black Rabbit's community was the largest community in the eastern region of the box, divided into 4 regions, East, West, South, and North a few years ago. Black Rabbit's tone became a little impatient. It was as if he was fighting for something invisible. That look made Noah, 16 Nights Reversal, Joe-Yuki, and Hiroyuki squint their eyes at the same time. A few years ago, right? Noah said indifferently. Then, what about now? Now. Black Rabbit was somewhat flustered, but it tried to hide it and pretend to be calm. However, driven by anxiety and panic, Black Rabbit's long rabbit ears were already swinging up and down like a tail that was stepped on. Anyone could see the emotions in its heart. I understand. 16 Nights Reversal said with a little boredom. I see, is this why you summoned us to this world? Hiroyuki suddenly tilted his head and looked confused. Reason? Isn't it because this world is a world where the bearer of grace must stay? It's not like that, Hiroi-san. Joe-Yuki stared at Black Rabbit with sharp eyes. This Miss Black Rabbit also said that a few years ago, her community was still very powerful. In other words, now, it's completely different, right? Black Rabbit clenched its teeth and was silent. Let me guess. Noah sighed slightly and said. Your community must have encountered an unimaginable predicament for some reason. Either it has declined, or it is in dire need of manpower. That is why you had no choice but to summon humans with the highest level of grace from another world, right? Black Rabbit lowered its head, and the pair of rabbit ears that were originally high up also drooped down. Seeing this, anyone could understand that Noah's guess was correct. No matter what, let me hear it first. Noah said to Black Rabbit. The situation of your community. Hearing this, Black Rabbit raised her head in surprise and looked at Noah with eyes full of uncertainty. That? Black Rabbit asked tentatively. Could it be that you will still choose to join our community? What? Do you think that I will give up joining your community because it's declining? Noah curled his lips. I'm sorry, if it's just the reason of being weak, then it's not enough to convince me to give up. I feel the same. 16 Knight's face once again showed an insufferably arrogant smile. It's better to start from scratch, step by step, and defeat the people who are more powerful than the community I joined. That's also very interesting, right? Noah-san is right. Joe-Yuki said nonchalantly. It's better to say that if the conditions of the community I want to join are too good, then I will give up. I didn't come to this world because I want to be a lady and enjoy good conditions. It's the same for me. Hiroyuki nodded calmly. I came here to make friends. You heard that. Noah smiled. So, no matter how bad your community situation is, let's hear it first. After hearing it, we will decide whether to join or not. Say. Everyone. Black Rabbit was suddenly touched. Don't be touched too early. Noah raised his hand. We still have to wait for you to explain the situation before we make a decision. I understand. Black Rabbit took a deep breath and looked at Noah's group. I wonder if anyone has heard of the title of Demon King. Chapter 1259. Demon King. When this title came out of Black Rabbit's mouth, and clearly entered the ears of everyone present, the expressions of the 4 people present were completely different. Noah raised his eyebrows. Reverse 16 Knight's eyes lit up. Jiu Fei Niao was startled. Haruhi Byari blinked his eyes. That completely different performance also showed the strong personalities of Noah, 16 Nights Reversal, Zhou Yu Fei Niao, and Haruhibu Yai Chi. Noah was very interested in this. Reverse 16 Nights was eager to try. Zhou Fei Niao was deep in thought. Haruhibu Yari had nothing to do. Their different strong personalities caused Black Rabbit's ears to shrink slightly, but it still began to explain under everyone's gaze. As I said before, Hakata is a game world. No matter what it is, it can't be separated from the bestowment game. Black Rabbit said seriously. And in Hakata, there are many Asura gods and Buddhas that have various privileges that can be used in the game. Privileges? Noah scratched his face. So you're saying that some people have special privileges in the game? Yes. The Black Rabbit nodded and put its hands on the side of its long rabbit ears, making a listening gesture. Black Rabbit belongs to the Moon Rabbit clan. They have special privileges and are called the Hakata aristocrats. They belong to a god called Sakra. Black Rabbit's special privilege is called the Judgment Privilege. It's a privilege that only Moon Rabbits have. This privilege allows Black Rabbit to act as a judge in the bestowment game. His ears and eyes are connected to the center of Hakata. No matter where he is, he can know the entire process of the game, making it impossible for both the participants and the organizer to violate the rules. Judgment Privilege. Reverse 16 Nights smiled excitedly. Then, does the Demon King also have special privileges in the game? Yes. Black Rabbit's tone became slightly lower. There's a type of authority called the Organizer Authority. It's the authority that allows the holder to play a role in the game as the organizer. Its role is to force others to participate in the game. It can completely ignore the wishes of the participants and make the participants unable to refuse to participate in the game. Ignoring the wishes of the participants and forcing them to participate. Zhou Fei Niao was shocked. So overbearing. The existence of the organizer's authority was originally to allow the organizer to formulate more complete rules of the game, so that participants with bad intentions would not be able to interfere with the game through illegal actions. Black Rabbit shook its head. However, some of the people who hold this authority willfully abuse this authority and wantonly force others to participate in the game. The Black Rabbit raised its head and looked straight at Noah's group. This kind of person who abuses the authority of the organizer and forces others to participate in the game of grace for their own purposes, ignoring the wishes of others, is the so-called Demon King. Hearing this, Noah and the rest more or less understood why Black Rabbit mentioned the existence of the Demon King. Noah frowned and met Black Rabbit's gaze. Could it be that your community was forcefully dragged into the game by the Demon King and lost, leading to its decline? Yes. The Black Rabbit lowered its head. Our community was taken away from everything that was necessary to carry out activities as a community. Not only were all our companions taken away, even the flag that symbolized the community itself was taken away. Even the name of the community was not allowed to exist, and we could only call ourselves by the name, No Name. The flag and name were all taken away. Haruhibu Yato was slightly shocked. Even the companions were not left behind. To be precise, it should be said that all the companions that formed the core of the community were all taken away. Black Rabbit bit its lips. Now, there are only 122 people left in Black Rabbit's community. Among these 122 people, only Black Rabbit and the young master, who is the leader of the community, have the ability to participate in the game. The other members are all children under the age of 10. Their original status, reputation, and companions were all taken away. Only these children and the ruins of the stronghold are left. Everyone was silent. This was a situation that couldn't be any worse. There was no name that could be used to advertise or call themselves, no flag that could be used to promote glory and symbolize, and even all their companions were taken away, leaving only a group of children. This was simply the point of despair, wasn't it? Such a community, it even made people question whether it was necessary to exist. No. In a situation where there wasn't even a name, perhaps, other people wouldn't even remember this community, let alone question the existence of this community. In such a situation, Black Rabbit could only place its hopes on the newly gathered companions. Black Rabbit wants to protect the home that can bring back the lost companions. Black Rabbit's expression was as if it wanted to shout from the bottom of its heart as it spoke to Noah's group. In order to protect the home of the companions that disappeared because of the game with the Demon King, Black Rabbit must work hard to rebuild the community. One day, we will also take back the name and flag of the community. In order to achieve this goal, we need participants like you who have powerful gifts. After saying that, Black Rabbit bowed deeply in the direction of Noah's group. Please lend me your strength, lend us your strength to our community. An indescribable silence suddenly filled the entire space. Noah's group could all see it clearly. Black Rabbit's delicate body was trembling slightly. This ewe rabbit, who was known as the aristocrat of the box court, was really putting her life on the line. If she couldn't let Noah's group join the community that she belonged to, then this community would really be finished. Otherwise, Black Rabbit wouldn't have spent so much effort to summon people from other worlds. It was because there was no hope of saving her community in the box court that Black Rabbit could only place its hopes on the people from other worlds. After all, who would be willing to join a community that only had children left? The stronghold was still in ruins, and didn't even have a name or flag. In this world that was mainly about games, if one wanted to participate in the game, they had to do it in the name of the community. This way, if a community without a flag and name wanted to participate in the game, it would be very difficult. In this world that was mainly about games, even participating in the game was so difficult. What was the difference between that and being driven to a dead end? Of course, no one would choose to join such a community. However, the 4 people present were definitely outliers. The Demon King. 16 Knights laughed. Very good. This is very interesting. 16 Knights' laughter instantly attracted everyone's attention. What? Jiu Fei now looked at 16 Knights. Have you decided to join? If you didn't say it before, I would have chosen to join, right? Isn't it interesting to have a battle of wits with the Demon King? 16 Knights shrugged. However, since I already said that I would choose whatever that little brother over there chooses, then I won't take back my words. Then it's the same reason as me, right? Jiu Fei now suddenly laughed. I won't take back what I said before. Same here. Haruai Hiroyuki still had a casual look. As long as he joins, then I will join. In other words, Noah still had the right to make the decision. Everyone's gaze once again gathered on Noah. Black Rabbit also slightly raised her head, a pair of eyes filled with anxiety, nervousness, and anticipation looked directly at Noah. Under everyone's gaze, Noah bitterly smiled. Noah looked at Black Rabbit with a trace of gentleness in his eyes. Do you want to protect your companion's home? Yes. Yes. Black Rabbit was startled at first, but then firmly nodded. Black Rabbit wants to protect this home for my companions. Looking at Black Rabbit's firm expression, Noah finally smiled. I understand. Noah nodded. I will join your community. Black Rabbit suddenly raised her head, and looked at Noah with surprise. After confirming that Noah was not joking, she tightly pursed her lips, and a smile appeared on her beautiful face. That smile was exceptionally beautiful. Chapter 1260. Oh, under the huge wall, Noah, 16 Knights, Joyu and Osaka, and Haruai Hikari all looked up at the spectacular huge rock wall and sighed. We didn't notice it when we fell from the sky. Noah clicked his tongue in amazement. Now that we look at it carefully, it seems that this place is bigger than we imagined, right? Yes. Because Hecate can be said to be the most important city in this world. Black Rabbit explained to everyone in a cheerful and lively tone. In Hecate, there is a huge curtain that can cover the entire city. That huge curtain is set up for the races that can't be directly exposed to the sun. In addition, various Asura gods and Buddhas mainly live in the upper level of Hecate. Therefore, there is even a saying that this place is the center of the world. The upper level of Hecate. Noah turned his head and looked at Black Rabbit. Is there a number of levels in this city? Yes. Black Rabbit explained enthusiastically. The entire Hecate city is actually divided into 4 regions: East, South, West, and North. In addition to being divided into 4 regions, Hecate is also divided into 7 outer walls. We call it the boundary wall. It is divided into 7 levels, with the boundary wall as the separation. In other words, the entire Hecate city is divided into 4 parts: East, South, West, and North. It is also divided into 7 levels by the boundary wall. The 7 levels, we use the term number to differentiate. The closer to the city center, the smaller the number of the level. Black Rabbit explained one by one. In other words, the most central part of Hecate is 1 digit, and the outermost part is 7 digits. At the same time, the closer it is to 1 digit, the stronger the strength and power of the people living in the level and the community. Generally speaking, as long as it reaches 4 digits, it is already comparable to the famous Asura gods and Buddhas. After saying that, Black Rabbit pointed at the door under the huge wall in front of them. In addition, there are many doors used to enter and exit each boundary wall. The door in front of us is the outer door of 21053880, which is also the area where our base is located. 21053880. 7 digits. 16 Knights shrugged. It is indeed the lowest level. Yes. Black Rabbit's cheerful and lively tone became somewhat diffident. No choice. In our community, other than Black Rabbit and the leader, the others don't have the ability to participate in the game of grace. Black Rabbit can't participate in the game as he wishes. There's nothing we can do about it. The members of the Moon Rabbit clan had the same authority as the organizer, which was also a special authority. When you two, who had the authority to judge, acted as the game's judge, neither side could violate the game's rules. Once the rules were violated, you two, as the judge, would be able to use her authority as the judge to determine the offender's defeat on the spot. As a member of the Moon Rabbit clan, the Black Rabbit clan was subject to several restrictions. 1. Starting from the day you become the judge of the Game of Grace, you are not allowed to participate in any Game of Grace for 15 days. 2. If you want to participate in the Game of Gifts, you must first obtain permission from the organizer. 3. You are not allowed to participate in games held outside of Hecate. Due to this reason, the Black Rabbit could not participate in the Game of Grace as he wished, and could only rely on his work as a judge as the only source of income in the community. Being poor to this point, even if he wanted to squeeze into the top 10, it was impossible. In addition, no name was a community without a flag or a name, and the internal members were all children, so it was natural for him to be in the bottom 7 digits. No matter what, with everyone joining us, our community will definitely be able to take another step forward. The Black Rabbit quickly pulled himself together and said to Noah and the others. Now, let's have Black Rabbit take everyone to appraise their own gifts. Appraisal gift. In verse 16 Knights, Jo Yuao, and Haruai Hibakushi were all slightly stunned. Appraisal gift. Noah was also slightly stunned. Don't you want to know what kind of potential and ability your gifts have? The Black Rabbit blinked his eyes. You should know that the correct understanding of one's own strength is one of the most basic conditions for becoming stronger, right? Upon hearing this, in verse 16 Knights, Jiuyuao, and Hiroi Hibikushi looked at each other with a complicated expression on their faces. Obviously, for these three problem children, the powers they possessed should have triggered various events that affected them greatly in various aspects, right? Therefore, even Inverse 16 Knights had a complicated expression on his face. However, including Inverse 16 Knights, Jiuyuao, Hiroi Hibikushi, and the rest remained silent and did not say anything. Noah was the only one who more or less frowned. The so-called gifts referred to all kinds of special powers that were bestowed by the Asura gods, Buddhas, demons, elves, and even the stars themselves. There were various kinds of powers. Some of them were powers like magic and magic that Noah often encountered in other worlds. Some of them were powers that existed in the form of objects like relics and god relics. In other words, as long as it was a mysterious power that normal humans could not possess, it could be called a gift. Looking at it this way, the power that Noah possessed was also called a gift in this world. However, Noah's power did not belong to the Asura gods or Buddhas in this world. Looking at it this way, Noah's power could not be called a gift. In view of this, it was still unknown whether the so-called appraisal gift that the Black Rabbit mentioned would work on Noah. Moreover, Noah knew a lot about his own power, so there was no need for it to be appraised. However, even so, Noah did not say anything. Instead, he nodded at the Black Rabbit. Then, bring us to try it out. Yes. The Black Rabbit was like a tour guide and a real rabbit as it leaped forward. Then, please follow the Black Rabbit. Therefore, under the Black Rabbit's lead, they walked into the city called Hakata. If one were to use an idiom to describe Hakata, even if it could not be called a paradise on earth, it could be described as beautiful scenery. The bustling city did not have the usual hustle and bustle that a normal human city would have. There was only a faint sense of tranquility and peace. The streets were paved with stone bricks. There was beautiful vegetation on both sides of the streets. The shops were close to each other, and there were all kinds of products on the shop fronts. The pedestrians came and went, giving off a lively vibe. Walking on such a street, Noah could see a square with a fountain and an open-air restaurant with good lighting from time to time. It was very attractive everywhere. We're heading to a branch of a community called Thousand Eyes. The Black Rabbit, who was walking in front of everyone, introduced it to Noah and the rest. It's a large-scale business community formed by members who have a special magic eye gift. Their power is spread all over the 4 districts of Hakata. They're very famous no matter if it's the upper or lower class. Is it a gift of the demon eye? Noah said thoughtfully. You plan to let a member of this community help us appraise the gift? Yes. The Black Rabbit smiled slightly, but for some reason, that smile was a little dejected. Because the Black Rabbit has an acquaintance in Thousand Eyes, so I can ask her for help. Although she's a very troublesome person. Noah looked at the Black Rabbit in confusion. A very troublesome person. Yes. The Black Rabbit nodded heavily. A very, very troublesome person. However, just as this sentence fell, the next moment, an accident happened. Yo-ho! Accompanied by such a cheer, in front of them, a figure suddenly rushed over at an extremely fast speed. Like a cannonball, it heavily crashed into the Black Rabbit's abdomen. Dong! In the muffled sound, the Black Rabbit did not even have time to react. His entire body flew out from the impact and rolled into a ball with the attacking figure. Chapter 1261. The sudden movement made Noah, 16 Knights, Jiu Feinyao, and Hiroi Buyao all stand up in shock. Noah and 16 Knights, in particular, were shocked. They turned their heads abruptly and looked behind them. There, the Black Rabbit that was suddenly sent flying was sitting on the ground, holding its head while moaning. So painful, and in the Black Rabbit's arms, there was a little girl. She didn't even look as young as Ashtar, only about 10 years old, very young and delicate, but had a head of very eye-catching snow-white hair, wearing a kimono. This little girl was tightly hugging the black rabbit, burying her entire face in the black rabbit's great chest, rubbing it with an intoxicated expression. Sure enough, it's the black rabbit. This feeling is too great. Too great, that appearance was simply like an idiot. At this time, the black rabbit felt something strange in front of its chest, lowering its head, looking at the little girl rubbing its chest back and forth like an idiot. It couldn't help but be surprised. By Lord Byakuya. Why are you here? Of course it's because I feel that the black rabbit is about to come. The little girl called Byakuya let out a strange laugh, her face still rubbing against the black rabbit's chest. So, I came to rub off the delicious rabbit. This feeling really makes people speechless. Please let go of me. The black rabbit's face immediately turned red, grabbing Byakuya's shoulder and using all its strength to push it out. However, that petite girl continued to rub against the black rabbit's great chest. The intoxicated expression on her face could be seen by anyone. WH. What? Zhou Yufei now was somewhat confused. What is this situation? Haruai Buyao also tilted his head, raising the cat in his arms in front of him and asked. Are all the people in Hakata so strange? Meow, the three-haired cat in front of Haruai Buyao let out a lazy cry. Is that so? Haruai Hiroyuki nodded as if he understood the meaning of this lazy call. As for Noah and 16 Knights, they stared at White Yiksha, who was rubbing against Black Rabbit's chest. Their eyes flickered with a terrifying look. Hey, little brother. The corner of 16 Knights' mouth rose slightly. Did you notice that kimono lowly approaching just now? No. Noah narrowed his eyes. Although it's unbelievable, I really didn't notice anything. That's right. He didn't notice it. Until White Yiksha sent Black Rabbit flying, Noah, who possessed superb senses, did not sense any trace of White Yiksha's aura, nor did he discover White Yiksha's approach. This was inconceivable. Although Noah was often approached by people around him without him noticing, it was because there was no hostility, malice, or killing intent. Moreover, the aura of the person approaching him was very familiar. In the face of an unfamiliar aura, even if the other party did not have hostility, killing intent, or malice, it should be impossible for him to not notice it. After all, Black Rabbit was beside Noah and was less than a meter away from Noah. As a result, under such circumstances, until White Yiksha made a sound and sent Black Rabbit flying, Noah was not able to notice the other party's approach. What did this mean? It meant that if White Yiksha's action just now was not to throw herself into his arms but to assassinate him, Noah would not notice anything until Black Rabbit died. Of course, when an individual with hostility, malice, and killing intent approached, Noah's senses would be sharpened by several levels. It should not be to this extent. But even so, it was shocking enough. This should be the second time I've encountered such a situation besides Orpheus, right? Noah stared at White Yiksha, who kept rubbing against Black Rabbit's chest. That girl, what is her background? Although he said that, Noah had a different feeling about the girl named White Yiksha. That kind of feeling was called intimacy. Stroking his chest and feeling the emotion called intimacy, Noah's eyes flickered, and then he smiled. As expected of a world where all kinds of Asura gods and Buddhas roam freely, the smell of incense filled the entire space. In a standard kimono room, White Yiksha, who was wearing a kimono, sat down on the seat of honor. She held a paper fan in her hand and fanned herself while casting her gaze across. There, Noah, 16 Knights Reversal, Jyoyu Asuka, Haruhito Hikari, and Black Rabbit sat down. Black Rabbit, Jyoyu Asuka, and Haruhito Hikari were all sitting in standard positions. Noah and 16 Nights Reversal sat there casually and met White Yiksha's gaze. You are the new companions that Black Rabbit found, right? White Yiksha's tender face had a smile that was either mischievous or malicious. Let me introduce myself. I am a member of the Thousand Eyes who established a base in the 3345 Outer Sect, White Yiksha. So, don't look at me like this. I am a big shot with a base in the 4 digits. 4 digits. 16 Nights Reversal, Joyu Asuka, and Haruhito Hikari's group all looked at White Yiksha. Their eyes showed some signs of fighting spirit. Noah looked at White Yiksha with a calm expression, but he was muttering in his heart. 4 digits. Is it only 4 digits that I can't detect? Although Black Rabbit said that 4 digits was the level of most famous Asura gods and Buddhas, Noah's guess of White Yiksha's level was higher. In other words, Noah didn't think that ordinary Asura gods and Buddhas could get close to him without him noticing. Or is it that the gods in this world are much stronger than the gods I knew before? This wasn't impossible. However, what Noah cared more about was why he had an unusual sense of closeness to White Yiksha. At this time, White Yiksha also turned his attention to Noah. He looked at Noah, tilted his head, and was a little puzzled. Kid over there, you seem to be a little special. With one sentence, everyone's attention was drawn to Noah. Noah was slightly startled. He looked at White Yiksha with some uncertainty. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "Why do you say that?" "If I knew, I wouldn't talk to you in such an uncertain way," White Yiksha said in a somewhat mature tone. "However, you're right. If I have to say why I said that, it's because of my feelings, right?" Feelings? Could it be that White Yiksha was the same as Noah and would have an unusual sense of closeness to Noah? "Hey, kid." White Yiksha seemed to care a little and waved at Noah. "Come here and let me have a good look." "Ah." Noah scratched his cheek, then helplessly spread out his hands. He got up, went forward, and sat down in front of White Yiksha. White Yiksha suddenly had a thoughtful expression. He first looked at Noah, then reached out his hand and pressed it on Noah's chest. At this moment, a strange phenomenon happened. With Noah as the center, a dazzling light burst out from Noah's body like a flame. Black Rabbit, 16 Nights Reversal, Joyu Asuka, and Kasuga Hikari were all shocked. They raised their hands and blocked in front of them. Not to mention the others, even Noah was surprised. Because at this moment, in Noah's heart, on the stone plate that represented the authority of the 10 incarnations, one of the patterns suddenly flashed with an unprecedentedly strong light. That picture depicted a majestic white horse. It was the incarnation of the white horse. With one hand on Noah's body, White Yiksha ignored the strong light that burst out like a flame. He raised his head and looked at Noah. All kinds of emotions appeared in his eyes. Astonishment. Shock. Doubt. Confusion. In the end, all sorts of emotions turned into intense curiosity, causing by Yiksha to speak word by word. "You're carrying the sun on your back." Chapter 1262. You're carrying the sun on your back. White Yiksha's words stunned Noah. What did he mean by that? White Yiksha didn't say anything. Instead, he looked straight at Noah. After a while, he suddenly laughed. Interesting. A human actually has the essence of carrying the sun on his back. How interesting. With that, White Yiksha withdrew his palm. At the same time, the white horse that was blooming with an unprecedented dazzling light in Noah's heart gradually dimmed. The blazing light on his body also calmed down bit by bit until it completely disappeared. Only then did Black Rabbit, 16 Nights Reversal, Joyuen Flying Bird, and Kasuga Hibiya raised their heads in surprise. Noah stroked his chest and looked at White Yiksha. What's going on? Oh. White Yiksha raised his eyebrows. Don't you know? What's wrong? Noah frowned. Should I know something? Logically speaking, you should know. White Yiksha waved the fan in his hand and looked at Noah with a faint smile. Or do you actually not know who I am? What? Noah looked straight at White Yiksha. Should I know who you are? Then, let me introduce myself again. White Yiksha suddenly smiled. A heart-palpitating aura emerged from his petite body. I'm the star spirit of the sun and White Knight. In the past, I was known as the White Knight Demon King White Yiksha. When this sentence came out of White Yiksha's mouth, everyone present gasped. Star Spirit. In this box court world where all kinds of Asuras, gods, and Buddhas gathered, there were three races that could be called the strongest. 1. A transcendent individual born with the identity of a god spirit. 2. The highest level existence among the elves, ghosts, and demon star spirits. 3. A strange beast that only existed in myths and legends, the apex of the phantom beast's dragon species. In this world where gods and Buddhas were everywhere and mythological beasts were as numerous as dogs, these three existences were regarded as the three strongest races. If these three races were to be ranked, the star spirits would be at the top of the three races. It was a type of main sprite that existed on stars and above. Fairies, ghosts, demons, and other concepts of the highest level of existence. Black Rabbit had said that the so-called gifts referred to the special powers bestowed by various Asuras, Buddhas, elves, demons, and stars. The stars referred to the star spirits. In other words, White Yiksha was an existence that could bestow power to others, allowing ordinary humans to obtain the power known as bestowment and become extraordinary individuals. Furthermore, White Yiksha was not an ordinary star spirit, but the sun star spirit. In other words, it was not an exaggeration to treat White Yiksha as the sun itself. In addition, the so-called Yiksha referred to the gods of water and earth, the ghost god known as the evil god. White Yiksha was the star spirit of the strongest species, and at the same time, it was also a god. This way, even in this box where infinite Asura gods and Buddhas were gathered, the girl named White Yiksha was definitely one of the top existences. However, Noah finally understood why he felt close to White Yiksha. Because if White Yiksha was the sun itself, then Noah, who could use the power of the white horse, had a deep relationship with White Yiksha. Noah's white horse was the authority that he had seized from the invincible war god named Welslana. As the guardian of the sun's incarnation that could transform into 10 different incarnations, Welslana's mythical ring was that he could transform into a white horse and be responsible for transporting the sun, making the sun follow the trajectory of rising from the east and setting in the west. If the sun was compared to an emperor on patrol, then the white horse was the mount responsible for protecting and transporting the sun. Therefore, Welslana was also known as the Son of Light, known as the sun's favorite, or even the son of the sun. Therefore, White Yiksha said that Noah carried the sun on his back. This was because Noah's body had the power to transport the sun. Therefore, Noah and White Yiksha had a special sense of each other. This was because in terms of nature and power, White Yiksha was the sun, and Noah was the son of the sun. It was because he sensed the existence of his mother that the white horse in Noah's body reacted. Noah had a sense of intimacy with White Yiksha because his body had the power that originated from the sun. White Yiksha could sense Noah because Noah's body had the power of the same root as hers. Upon understanding this, the members of No Name, led by Black Rabbit, immediately looked at Noah in surprise. Jiofei Niao and Kazuhito Hiroyuki were still fine because they didn't have any real experience in myths and legends, so they didn't know how shocking this was. However, Black Rabbit and 16 Knights Reversal were really surprised. Transporting the sun. Black Rabbit looked at Noah in a daze and said hesitantly. In other words, Noah-san has the gift of the sun god. Hey, little brother, are you still hiding such a method? 16 Knights Reversal shouted excitedly and discontentedly. Why didn't you take it out when you were fighting with me? You also said it was a fight. Noah rolled his eyes. This isn't a power that can be used to fight. You're right. This power is indeed not like a normal gift. It's a power that can be used to fight. White Yiksha closed the paper fan in his hand and smiled with interest. If it was a gift from the sun god, then there shouldn't be such a big reaction when he saw me. So, rather than saying that it was a gift from the sun god, it's better to say that he has the essence of the sun god. Ha! Black Rabbit was shocked. In other words, Noah-san is not a human, but a god. No. This guy is undoubtedly a human, but he has the essence of a god. White Yiksha was also distressed. It's like the outside is a human, and the inside is a god. It's also like the inside is a human, and the outside is a god. It's so contradictory. It's really strange. Hearing this, Noah also smiled bitterly. However, White Yiksha was right. Noah's power was indeed not simply obtained from a god. Instead, he directly killed a god and usurped it from a god. In addition, from the moment he usurped authority, Noah was reincarnated as a god slayer because of Pandora's great curse. Rather than a human who obtained power from a god, it was better to say that he was a monster who kicked a god off the altar and replaced it. White Yiksha was distressed because he did not understand this point. Forget it. Anyway, the power you carry doesn't just seem to be the sun. There seem to be many other things besides the sun. White Yiksha knocked on the floor with the closed paper fan in his hand. This is the first time I've seen such a strange existence like you. Kid, do you want to consider coming to my place? I can treat you like a real son. Noah's eyelids suddenly twitched. Because White Yiksha was the sun, and Noah had the power of the sun, this was not wrong. However, Gaia and Alea, who claimed to be Noah's mother, already had the suppression power of a lowly. Pandora, the lowly, also claimed to be Noah's mother. Now, White Yiksha's young daughter wanted to accept Noah as a son. Was there a need to be so suitable? As for Black Rabbit, it jumped up directly. No. No way. Lord White Yiksha. Black Rabbit hurriedly said. Mr. Noah has already joined Black Rabbit's community. How can he become Lord White Yiksha's son? Why not? White Yiksha said matter-of-factly. Anyway, you are my pet. The man you fancy will become my son. Isn't that good? Black Rabbit is not Lord White Yiksha's pet. Black Rabbit looked like it was about to cry. Lord White Yiksha, please stop teasing Black Rabbit. Ha 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 ha. White Yiksha laughed out loud. Alright. Seeing that you have met such an interesting person today, I'll give you some gifts. After saying that, Bayasha clapped his hands, and a few cards appeared in the air. Chapter 1263. About half an hour later, Noah, Kuroto, Haruai Hibakushi, and Reverse 16 Knights walked out of the Branch of Thousand Eyes. Noah turned around and looked at the building that looked like a normal shop on the street. He then raised a card in his hand. It was a card that seemed to flash with all the colors in the world. However, the color of the card was not the same color as the flash. Not only Noah, but Reverse 16 Knights, Kuroto, and Haruai Hibakushi each held a card that flashed with the same light, but the color was completely different. Noah's card was dark gold. Reverse 16 Knights' card was cobalt blue. Kuroto's card was wine red. Haruai Hibakushi's card was pearl emerald. The four of them all held such a strange card, and they all looked at the surface of the card at the same time and fell into silence. Only Kuroto seemed to be in a good mood. I didn't expect Bayek-sama to give us 4 gift cards. He is so generous. Gift card. It was a type of gift that could materialize, such as weapons, armor, tools, items, and so on into cards that could be stored. The card's official name was Laplace paper, which was called part of omniscience, so the price was quite expensive. However, this kind of card called the gift card could not only store the gifts in the form of materialization, but it could also display the names of all the gifts held by the holder. In other words, with this gift card, the true face of Noah's group's gift would be revealed. These 4 extremely expensive cards had been casually given away by White Yiksha. It could be imagined how good Byakuya's mood was when he saw Noah. Looking carefully, Reverse 16 Knights, Kuroto, and Haruai Hibakushi's gift card were marked with the name of the gift they held. Reverse 16 Knights gift card marked with the name of the gift Truth Unknown. Kuroto's gift card marked with the name of the gift Light of Might. Haruai Hibakushi's gift card marked with the name of the gift Life Catalog. According to Kuroto, the gifts the 3 of them currently held belonged to the highest level among humans. Noah had already experienced Reverse 16 Knights, Truth Unknown. However, Noah was more or less curious about the abilities bestowed by the 2 girls, Kyuyuki and Haruai Biao. Kuroto's Light of Might was a kind of ability that could use language to forcibly control an individual, making the individual under her control obey her orders and act by force. This gift was almost identical to the dominating speech spirit of the priestly incarnation in Noah's 10 Incarnations authority. Haruai Hibakushi's Life Catalog allowed the holder to obtain the ability to communicate with other races whose language was different, and obtain a permanent special ability from them. For example, from a dog, Haruai Hibakushi could obtain an extraordinary sense of smell. From an elephant, he could obtain the ability to instantly increase his weight. From a leopard, he could obtain astonishing running speed. From an eagle, he could obtain extremely high vision. Byakuya believed that Haruai Hibakushi could even obtain the ability of the phantom beasts in the box, which was a very powerful gift. The gifts the 3 of them held were worthy of the title of humanity's highest level gift. However, Reverse 16 Knights, Kuroto, and Haruai Hibakushi didn't pay attention to the knowledge of the gift displayed on their gift cards. Instead, they all cast their gazes on the dark gold gift card in Noah's hand. Taking a closer look, there was nothing written on the gift card in Noah's hand. Why isn't it written? Kuroto's excitement gradually calmed down and turned into confusion. Undoubtedly, Mr. Noah has such a powerful gift, doesn't he? Hearing that, Noah didn't say anything on the surface, but he felt more or less helpless in his heart. He still remembered how surprised Byakuya and Kuroto were when Noah received the gift card and there was no information on it. That was to be expected, wasn't it? The gift card was known as an omniscient card. Not to mention in the box, even in all kinds of other worlds, the gift card could display the information of the gift. However, there were 2 special cases today. One was Reverse 16 Knights. The gift card of Reverse 16 Knights only had the words, "The truth is unknown." The rest of the information didn't appear, which also shocked Byakuya and Kuroto. However, the situation of Reverse 16 Knights wasn't that the gift card couldn't identify the original gift, but that the gift of Reverse 16 Knights had 2 abilities, the gift of shattering heaven and earth, and the power of shattering gift. Because of the latter, the gift card in his hand was invalidated by the gift of Reverse 16 Knights. Therefore, the gift card of Reverse 16 Knights only had the words, "The truth is unknown." As for Noah, there was no information at all. According to Byakuya, there was only one possibility for such a situation to occur. No gift. Reverse 16 Knights narrowed his eyes and drew back the corners of his mouth. This is really an interesting conclusion, so interesting that I want to see what's in that kimono loli's head. Yes. Byakuya's conclusion was that the person holding the gift card didn't have a gift, which led to such a situation. Otherwise, even if it had the power to invalidate the gift like Reverse 16 Nights, there would be a description of "the truth is unknown" that was similar to the failure of the appraisal. Therefore, if nothing was shown, it could only prove that the person needed to be appraised didn't exist. That was all. However, that was also within Noah's expectations. After all, Noah's power didn't come from this world's Azura gods, elves, demons, or even stars. Even Laplace, who claimed to be omniscient, couldn't possibly have knowledge that didn't exist in this entire worldview, right? That was all there was to it. No matter what, our goal has been achieved. Noah, who was well aware of his situation, shrugged, put away the gift card, and looked at you Tuesday. "Now, take us to the community's stronghold first." "What? Are we leaving now?" Reverse 16 Nights glanced at the shop behind him and was eager to try. "That kimono loli seems to be quite powerful. Don't you want to play with her?" As soon as he said that, Joyuki and Haruhi Byachi's eyes flickered with a restless light. They looked like problem students who wanted to cause trouble for their teacher. "No. No." Black Rabbit's long rabbit ears trembled as she quickly stopped them. "Lord White Yiksha is a deity of the stars. Although her stronghold is only in the 4 digits, she is the ruler of the entire East District. She is also known as the strongest existence among the rulers of the hierarchy. In the past, she was one of the demon kings who wreaked havoc in the entire Hakata. She has long been recognized as an existence that must not be provoked. We must not challenge such a Lord White Yiksha." "I have the same idea." Noah laughed bitterly. "Although I don't know how strong White Yiksha is, it's certain that she's ridiculously strong. I don't think I can defeat her now." Or rather, even if he used his full strength, Noah didn't think he could easily defeat White Yiksha. Unless he used his true trump card, which was the incarnation of a warrior. Reverse 16 Nights, Joyuki, and Haruhi Byachi curled their lips unwillingly but didn't say anything. At this moment, Noah suddenly felt a strong gaze on him, causing him to turn his head and look behind him. However, there was nothing there. Black Rabbit and the others who were about to walk forward noticed Noah's abnormality and turned around. "Mr. Noah." Black Rabbit was puzzled. "What's wrong?" Noah's eyes flickered, and after a while, he retracted his gaze. "Nothing." Originally, as a member of the Moon Rabbit clan who has the authority to judge, Black Rabbit's duty is to be the judge of various games of bestowment. Compared to others, young Master Ren and everyone in the community are the ones who have it really tough. "Is that so?" Joyuan Fei Niao's gaze landed on Black Rabbit. His words were both provocative and rebuttal as he spoke majestically. "If that's the case, then there's no need for you to desperately beg us to join the community, right? Isn't that proof that you've been working hard for the community?" "That's what I think too." Haruhi Biyao looked around as if he was admiring the beautiful scenery around him. However, he interrupted at the perfect moment. "It's not good to be too humble. You haven't considered yourself at all, have you?" 16 Nights reversal was even more blunt. "Although this is also a virtue, it'll make people feel disgusted if you go overboard. That'll make people very unhappy, you know." "Ah. Black Rabbit's rabbit ears drooped as if it was a little dejected. "Why? Why am I suddenly being lectured? I just want you to think about yourself a little." Noah shrugged. "Just like everyone said, dedication is a virtue. However, if you blindly contribute without receiving anything in return, then as your companion, you will indeed feel a little unhappy. The main thing is that we can't accept it, right?" 16 Nights reversal, Zhou Yuan Fei Niao, and Haruai Biao nodded in agreement. Everyone here, including Noah, was in existence with high self-esteem. It wasn't impossible to accept help from others. However, if you blindly let others help you, then it would only show your own powerlessness and incompetence. Without a doubt, this was something Noah and the others absolutely couldn't accept. Therefore, here, they still had to give Black Rabbit, who was about to become a companion, some thought work. However, Black Rabbit, who took sacrifice as an instinct and took it for granted, had a perplexed expression. Is that so? Seeing Black Rabbit's confused look, Noah, 16 Nights Reversal, Zhou Yuan Fei Niao, and Haruai Biao all looked at each other and turned their heads. Just as they were about to say something to Black Rabbit, they suddenly shut their mouths at the same time and stopped in their tracks. Black Rabbit suddenly stopped and looked at Noah and the others, who suddenly stopped. After hesitating for a while, it spoke with some trepidation. Say, everyone, did Black Rabbit make you angry? Black Rabbit's question didn't attract any response from anyone. Because, with Noah as the leader, the group of problem children all looked forward. There were many small alleys. Black Rabbit tilted its head with a confused look, but in the next moment, its long rabbit ears trembled, and its expression froze. It turned its head abruptly and looked at the many small alleys in front of it. Then, the Black Rabbit let out a delicate cry. Who's there? Everyone suddenly went silent. Immediately after, a voice that sounded like a low chuckle rang out. Oh. Have I been discovered? As expected of a rabbit whose ears can connect to the center of the courtyard. Saying such a sentence, a figure squeezed out of the small alleyway in front of them. It was a strange man who was more than 2 meters tall and extremely burly. However, his huge body was stuffed into a close-fitting evening gown. It was a strange man with a violent appearance. Seeing this burly man, Black Rabbit was slightly shocked. Jared Gasper. I'm glad you still remember me, Black Rabbit. The burly man, who was called Jared by Black Rabbit, put on a fake smile and bowed to everyone present. Hello everyone, I'm the leader of Force Garo. Just as Black Rabbit called me, my name is Jared. Hearing this, Noah, 16 Nights Reversal, Joe Yuki, and Haruhito Masaaki looked at each other again. Then, they all looked at Black Rabbit with eyes full of questions. Receiving the group's gaze, Black Rabbit explained softly. In the upper levels of the box court, there is a community led by the Demon King called the 666 Beasts. Gilder's Force Garo is under the command of the 666 Beasts. In the vicinity of this 2105380 outer gate, they have control over all the medium-sized communities that can move around. They are quite a powerful force. Black Rabbit's explanation made everyone's eyes change. Other than Noah, 16 Nights Reversal, Joe Yuki, and Haruhito Masaaki all looked at Jared with restless eyes. I see. 16 Nights Reversal smiled happily. A community under the command of the Demon King. 16 Nights Reversal's smile was no doubt the smile of someone who had his eyes on an interesting prey. However, in Jared's eyes, it was a smile of reverence. He puffed out his chest and looked extremely proud. Well, compared to the super-large community of Thousand Eyes, which covers all areas and classes, my community only occupies a position in the 7 digits. But it's still much better than no name, which doesn't even have a flag or a name, right? You. Black Rabbit's expression suddenly became angry. Just as he was about to step forward, he was stopped by Noah. And? Noah asked as if nothing had happened. A big shot from the outer gate of 2105380 came looking for us, no name, which doesn't even have a flag or a name. What do you want from us? I'm here to invite you, Jared said directly. Do you want to join my community? Chapter 1265. Do you want to join my community? The moment this sentence came out of Jard's mouth, Black Rabbit's expression froze. With Noah as the leader, Reverse 16 Knights, Yuki, and Haruhito Masaaki all answered in unison. No. There was not even a second of hesitation in this answer. Noah, 16 Knights in Reverse, Yu Feinyao, and the Haruna tribe's members immediately rejected Gilder's invitation without any hesitation. The artificial smile on Jard's face was completely frozen. Black Rabbit's frozen expression was immediately replaced by surprise, and even her eyes curved into the shape of a crescent moon. Under such circumstances, the expressions of Noah, 16 Knights Reversal, Jiao Feinyao, and the Haruna tribe did not change in the slightest. They still looked as if they were going to do whatever they wanted. From this point of view, there was no doubt that these four people were extremely similar to each other. That attitude of not being taken seriously at all made the muscles on Jard's face twitch a little, and his expression became as if he was forcing a smile. I'm sorry, can you tell me the reason? Hearing this, Noah and the others looked at Jard with a faint smile. Isn't the reason very simple? Noah said lightly. Because we have already agreed to join Black Rabbit's community. Reverse 16 Knights, Yuki, and Haruhito Masaaki did not speak. But their nonchalant expressions made it clear that they did not bother to explain anything. Just because of this reason. Jard's smile began to turn ugly. With all due respect, the community that Black Rabbit belongs to is the no name that has neither a flag nor a name. My community, on the other hand, is the most powerful force in the entire 2105380 outer sect. There should be no reason for everyone to choose no name over my community, right? And then 16 Knights Reversal asked casually. Is there any reason that can attract us to join you? Jard was confused. What could attract people to join? Wasn't that obvious? As the number one community in the 2105380 outer sect, could it be that this alone was not enough to attract people to join? As if she saw through Jard's confusion, Yuki spoke. Just because your influence is bigger, you will definitely attract people. This kind of thinking is really superficial. Yuki mocked without holding back. Let me tell you, Mr. Fake Gentleman, before I came to Hakata, Yuki, had a rich family that could dominate the entire island, and I gave up such a good fortune to come to Hakata. In the end, you, a force that only controls a small area, don't think you're attractive to me, right? Jard's barely maintained the smile on his face began to change. I came here, I just want to be friends, Masaaki said straightforwardly. As for me, I don't want to be friends with someone who reeks of blood like you. Jard could no longer smile. His entire face was contorted. In other words, not only did Jard capture the leader of No Name, Ren, but he also captured all the children in No Name. Actually, it would have been better if I had done this from the beginning. The fake smile on Jard's face was finally replaced by a ruthless expression from the bottom of his heart. After all, I have always wanted you to join my community, Black Rabbit. In the box court, you too was a famous noble. Not only did they have many powerful gifts, but they also had the authority to decide the outcome of the gift game. To the box court, they were very special. For a community, just having one of them as a member was enough to coat the community with a layer of gold. Therefore, Jard had been watching Black Rabbit for a long time. It's not too late to join my community now. Jard grinned and smiled. If you join my community now, not only will I treat this group of brats well, I will also forgive your rudeness just now. How about it? In other words, if Noah and the others did not choose to join Jard's community, then all the children of No Name, led by Ren, would not have a good ending. Black Rabbit's shoulders were already trembling. It was because of anger. Black Rabbit stared at Jard. Because of his excessive anger, the entire space around Black Rabbit was filled with heavy pressure. You dare, as you too, who was known as a noble of the box court, Black Rabbit already possessed extraordinary strength. However, because of the limitations of the authority, Black Rabbit could not participate in the gift game as he wished, which led to such a destitute situation. However, if he faced you two directly, ordinary thieves were no threat at all. Therefore, the heavy pressure caused Jard and the others to freeze on the spot. It seems that you still don't understand your position. Jard's forehead was dripping with cold sweat, but he still forced a smile. Since that's the case, let me remind you. After saying that, Judd lifted his leg and kicked at the panicked Wren with a ferocious grin on his face, bringing with it a whistling wind. They were much stronger than normal humans, phantoms, monsters, and elves. Therefore, Rin did not guess that it was a 5-figure person. After all, although Forsgaro was powerful, it was only a 7-figure community at the bottom. To destroy such a community, there was no need for the likes of Azura gods to do anything. Therefore, a 6-figure figure was Ren's guess. After understanding what kind of existence attacked his base, Jared's body was also trembling uncontrollably. Noah and 16 knights had already walked into the scene and started to wander around the hellish scene. Noah crouched down and touched the blood on the ground. After feeling the viscosity of the blood, he said, "The blood is still very fresh. It should have happened not long ago. These people look very miserable, but they're still alive." 16 Knights put his hands in his pockets and smiled. The attacker probably didn't want to kill them all. Therefore, the target is probably not Forsgaro, but something else. Black Rabbit. Noah immediately turned his head and looked at Black Rabbit. What about the children in the community? Black Rabbit and Ren were shocked at the same time. Could it be that the opponent was here for the children? Thinking of this, Black Rabbit and Ren's faces showed a hint of anxiety. Just as they were about to rush into the mansion, a group of people ran out of the mansion. It was a group of children. A group of children who were about the same age as Ren. The leader was a little girl with fox-like ears and 2 tails. The moment the little girl saw Black Rabbit and Ren, she immediately shouted, "Sister Black Rabbit! Ren June!" Hearing the shout, Black Rabbit and Ren looked over and were immediately overjoyed. Lily! And everyone. It seemed that these children were all no-names children who had been abducted by Forsgaro. Seeing that their companions were safe and sound, Black Rabbit and Ren were overjoyed and quickly went forward. Black Rabbit immediately hugged the fox-like girl named Lily. "Lily, are you all okay?" We're fine." Lily quickly shook her head and said, Someone saved us." As soon as this sentence came out of the girl named Lily's mouth, a black shadow suddenly flew out of the side window of the mansion and shot into the distance. The first to react were Noah and 16 Knights. Their eyes focused at the same time, and their figures also turned into a black shadow. With a bang, they fiercely stomped on the ground and jumped up to chase after it. Chapter 1268. The faint sound of something breaking through the air echoed softly in the space, like ripples on the surface of the water, setting off a slight airflow. 3 figures, one in front and one behind, flew through the air in a completely different manner, like meteors chasing each other. Their speed was so fast that one could barely see an afterimage flashing through the space, which was quite frightening. The figure in front could not be seen in its entirety. However, the figure looked petite, with a pair of black wings on its back, like a shadow, flying forward at an extremely fast speed. The figure in the back was Noah. Relying on the magic effect of the necklace called flight, Noah's figure was also like a meteor, in the slight vibration of the atmosphere, with the whistling sound of the wind, rushing forward violently, without the slightest bit of distance between them. And below the two figures, one in front and one behind, chasing each other in the air, there was another figure. That was naturally 16 Knights in reverse. This human who could not fly, in the true sense of the third universe's speed, was like a cannonball, flying on the ground. The buildings had no way to stop this monster who had a terrifying physical ability that even Noah admitted that he could not compare to, but instead became the other's stepping stone. Reversing 16 Knights used a terrifying speed and nimble body to fly back and forth between the buildings. Firmly hanging in the air like a meteor, the two silhouettes shot forward explosively. This scene did not know how long it lasted. At a certain moment, the petite figure flying in the air suddenly descended. Seeing this, Noah's eyes flashed, and without any hesitation, he bent down and charged down. Coincidentally, 16 Knights in reverse was like a bullet, shooting out violently. As a result, the three figures fell heavily on the ground at the same time. Dong! Accompanied by a loud sound like a meteor hitting the ground, the whole ground trembled slightly. The three figures that were chasing each other almost fell heavily on the ground at the same time, stirring up a thick cloud of dust, causing the ground to crack inch by inch, like a spider web, spreading out. Whoosh! A gust of wind whistled past, sweeping away the thick sand and dust that filled the air. Noah and reverse 16 Knights stood in a straight line with some distance between them. Their gazes were fixed in front of them. There, a petite figure with her back facing the two, gently floating in the air. Three people, three positions, just formed a big triangle. From the perspective of Noah and 16 Knights in reverse, it was very clear. She had her back to him and was gently floating in the air. Behind her was a petite figure that looked like a pair of black wings. She had beautiful long hair that reached her waist. However, his carefree attitude made the cute and petite girl smile faintly. That smile was enough to make people's eyes light up. Soon after, the petite young girl spat out a mature voice. Not only are you able to easily catch up to me even when I'm flying at full speed, you're also able to face me fearlessly despite knowing that I have the ability to annihilate that lowly tiger human community. It seems that you all are rather capable humans. After saying this, the smile on the petite girl's face suddenly disappeared. If you have the ability, you can choose a good community to join. Why join No Name? Noah and 16 Knights looked at each other, then shrugged at the same time. What? Is joining No Name that strange? Noah said sarcastically. The so-called uniqueness is related to being a maverick. Since you think that we are not normal humans, then it's not strange for us to make a choice that normal humans would not make, right? That's how it is, blonde lowly. 16 Knights clapped his hands and said helplessly. Speaking of which, did you come because you looked down on No Name? Then why save the brats into No Name? The petite girl didn't say anything, but after looking at Noah and 16 Knights, she closed her eyes. Look around. Noah and 16 Knights were slightly startled, but they immediately looked around as they were told. What entered the eyes of Noah and 16 Knights in reverse was a wasteland. A ruin that seemed to have gone through hundreds of years, completely turned into a wasteland, and lost all signs of life. The seemingly flat white road was buried by sand and dust. One by one, the wooden buildings began to decay and collapse. The trees on both sides of the road were white and withered, abandoned at the side of the road. No matter how you looked at it, it was a wasteland. What's wrong? Noah looked around, then looked at the girl. What's so strange about it? You don't know where this is, right? The girl was silent for a while, then, with a self-deprecating tone, said. Then let me tell you. The girl looked straight at Noah. This is the base of a no name. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.